And we are live. Welcome to part one of this Star Wars Adventures on the Outer Rim trilogy titled Rebel Strike. Our plucky band of rebel heroes have received intelligence from Sheb Gurgren of the Rebel Alliance, a commander of the rebel fleet, that they have recently recovered a Quarren by the name of Secus Proco, who claims to have access to almost semi-mythical Alderaanian stealth technology that survived the destruction of their planet by the Death Star. However, he's refused to turn this technology over to the Rebel Alliance unless they agree to rescue a companion of his, a human bounty hunter by the name of Berek Nur, who was captured by the Emperor and his forces whilst the technology was being recovered. The rebellion, through their spy network, has managed to locate that Berek is aboard a THX-1138 prison barge being transported back towards the core. However, before it starts making its final journey to the point where it'll hyperspace off towards the core systems, at which point surely all hope of rescuing this person would be lost, it's stopping off to pick up its final consignment of prisoners. Using forged paperwork and documents, the rebellion has managed to smuggle aboard 3 of its agents, 2 of them as prisoners. The other, a droid by the name of T701, has been given a fresh lick of black paint and has been added onto a consignment of engineering droids that are going to be taken aboard the ship as well to help make vital repairs. Before they begin, each of the rebellion troops, the rebellion agents, undergo surgery to have a subdermal comlink implanted within them. All of the agents, including T701, although his is a good deal easier to fit, have these subdermal comlinks. They're very difficult to spot unless someone knows exactly what they're looking for, and they're hoping that the Empire won't be looking too strenuously, since people don't tend to try and break onto prison ships. Normally they're trying to break out. So you all have the ability to communicate with each other using these subdermal comlinks. So we've got our 3 players down below. I'm just going to ask each of them to introduce themselves and say a few brief words about their character. So first of all, we will start with Clay. Clay, introduce yourself and say a bit about your character.
I'm Clay. I am playing an human ace hotshot, assigned to get in, get out, and save the prisoner. He's pretty arrogant. He thinks he's the best, and should be a wild ride.
Thank you very much. Now we'll come to Gabe. Gabe, introduce yourself and say a bit about your character.
And I'm Gabe B. I'll be playing T701, and I'll look at Indigo and go beep 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 beep. He's always arrogant. Translation.
Splendid, thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we have Mike. Mike, introduce yourself and say a bit about your character.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike. I am with the YouTube channel Mike the Piper, where I play Star Wars with at least 2 of these individuals that I'm playing with today. And interestingly enough, this is actually the first game I've ever played in as a player. I have never played this game before.
Cheers, and, Mike. No pressure.
Yeah. And today I will be playing the human sharpshooter known as Cade Sen.
Okay, splendid. So we begin our scene with the prison barge, the Imperial prison barge Leviathan, making its final stop off to pick up prisoners at a small out-of-the-way space station that's really only there for prisoner transport. You guys have been smuggled in, or certainly Inigo and Cade have been smuggled in. You unfortunately have none of your equipment with you, since obviously you're posing as prisoners. You're wearing drab grey jumpsuits. There's a press of other people around you. You're all manacled together. The people are very pressed in this sort of docking bay, and you watch as this huge, ponderous, almost serpentine-like form of this Imperial prison barge slowly pulls towards the docking bay, and with a loud it docks with the small space station. The doors hiss open, a small wisp of atmosphere emerging from it, and you watch as a large battalion of the Imperial stormtroopers, the Emperor's finest, wearing their bleached bone-white armor, come marching out in lockstep, all carrying their blaster rifles across their chest. Standing at the head of them is a rather haughty-looking man, slightly balding, wearing an imperially grey uniform. He appears to be giving orders to the stormtroopers. They quickly start hustling people on board the ship. As the two of you are sort of being pushed forward by the press of the crowd, T701, you are stashed in a large crate along with several other droids. You feel the crate jostle as it's being loaded onto a repulsor sled, and then there's a as it slowly starts being moved towards the engineering section of the Imperial prison barge to be loaded on board. Now, Inigo... Splendid. Now, Inigo and Cade, as you're being pressed forward, I'm going to ask you to chip in a bit here now, guys, because we've said that you've been given false identities as prisoners. What crime are you apparently guilty of committing that's getting you placed aboard this Imperial prison vessel? I leave that entirely up to you. What would you like it to be?
Cade, I guess, has either some kind of an Imperial marking that indicates that he is a prisoner that has been accused of smuggling. And
okay,
given his not like kind of average frame, not really stocky, not too thin, just seems like that kind of gray man who you'd have to look twice to remember his face.
Okay, that's great. And what about yourself, Inigo? What fabricated crime is Inigo guilty of?
He's guilty of propaganda. He's stolen planetary spacecraft and dropped off propaganda pamphlets about the Empire and their staff, and was caught in a stolen vehicle while doing so.
Okay, not a problem. So Inigo and Cade, as the sort of press of this crowd, there must be at least 50 people here, all wearing miserable, downcast expressions and drab grey jumpsuits like yourself. You're all manacled together in a long line that snakes throughout the docking bay. Most of the people have extremely downcast expressions. For many of them, knowing that they're going to the core system, this will be the final journey that they ever take. Most of them are looking down at their feet or at the floor. It's almost as though all the will has been sapped out of them, and they slowly begin to shuffle forward as the stormtroopers poke a few of them in the back with their rifles and go, move along, and start gesturing for them to move aboard the ship, being guarded at all times by these stormtroopers. Inigo and Cade, can I ask you both to make the first roll of the game? And it will be, unsurprisingly, a perception roll. It's difficulty 2 purple. Okay, so we have a success from Mike. Okay. Inigo, you don't manage to spot this. However, Cade, as you're sort of looking around, you notice that one of the prisoners, who's just a couple of spaces down from you, he's been sort of fidgeting nervously as you're moving towards the entrance to the prison barge. And as he sort of moves his arms a little bit, you notice that he's actually managed to pick the lock on his manacles. You can see his muscles tensing as though he's getting ready to like make a run for it. What do you do, Cade?
I kind of, as we're shuffling, I kind of lean over to Inigo. Get ready. Someone's going to do something stupid, I think. Just keep your head down. When the shooting starts, maybe we can try and sneak aboard.
Okay. So luckily you two are sort of manacled next to each other, so Cade has no problems leaning over and telling you that, Inigo.
Inigo, you see he's, this is probably his first mission outside of actually StarCraft, and he's trying to look downcast, and when you say that, he gets a dumb grin on his face. He's kind of getting excited. He doesn't feel down at all like the other prisoners, but he's trying to maintain it. I'll follow your lead, Cade. No, okay, sounds good. He's trying to make that I'm a hotshot attitude.
Okay, no problem. As you're saying that, Inigo, this guy who's been picking his manacles, suddenly the manacles drop free with a loud thunk hitting the metallic floor of the docking bay. And this guy who's quite sort of scarred facially, missing several patches of hair as though they'd been burnt off his scalp, suddenly shouts, he's like, "No, you can't make me go back there. Look, all I did was smuggle some goods. I don't deserve this." And he just turns around and starts like bolting towards the back of the bay, towards the interior of this space station. You can tell, both of you, by the way that he's running, that he's not really got any sort of plan. He's just like almost running in a blind panic. He bumps into several of the other prisoners and like pushes past them, trying to make his way out. You watch as all of the stormtroopers who are lining either side of this launch bay lift their rifles up and slowly start tracking his movement across the launch bay.
Well, there's a dead man running.
You watch as the Imperial commander wearing the grey uniform slowly lifts his hands up in the air. And then with a sweeping motion, he brings his hand down, and there's a as the stormtroopers let fly with their blaster rifles. A number of shots hit this fleeing prisoner in the back, and then the firing dies down, just the echo of it fading away. He takes a few haltering steps despite the massive burn marks on his back. Then he pitches forwards, face first, spasms for a few moments on the metal deck plating, and lies still.
Well, that was quick. Let's hurry up and find this. What was his name? Yes, Berek Nur. Let us find this one and get out of here.
After they finished dispatching the prisoner, the stormtroopers immediately turn back to the prisoners and say, "Continue moving aboard," and gesture with their rifles. And most of the prisoners, sort of, who had a brief glimmer of hope in their eyes as it looked like this one guy was about to escape, immediately returned to their sort of downcast, sort of heads hanging down, shoulders slumped, and start shuffling forward in an almost zombie-like fashion, and they start filing onto the prison vessel. The two of you being carried along with them inside the press of the crowd.
Would it be possible for me to, much like this individual, try and kind of pick the manacles but leave them on, like make them look like they're still on, but at least when it comes time you can easily get out of them?
That is certainly a possibility. It would be a difficulty 3 mechanics check.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Why not? I really don't think this is going to work, but why the heck not?
Okay, that's an interesting roll to start the game with. We have 3 successes and 3 threats. So, as always with the Tides of Change games, I'm going to turn over to you to narrate what the successes are. You have been successful. So, feel free to narrate the successes, and I'll come in with the threats.
Using a small piece of metal that I usually just kind of keep actually inside the palm of my hand, I actually kind of pull it out of my hand, kind of wincing a bit in the pain, but I kind of jimmy the lock on both and do it in such a way that it's completely not noticeable by any of the stormtroopers as I'm walking by, and any type of like alarm that might have been on the manacles, I was able to disable. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but
that's absolutely fine. To all intents and purposes, your manacles are unlocked and disabled. You've just left them loosely on your hands, so a visual inspection would provide no clue that you have broken free of the restraints. But at any time, you can just throw them off as a free action. That's not a problem. As you guys are sort of shuffling forward and you're getting near the entrance of the huge Imperial prison barge, you can see that as each person is walking through, the Imperial officer, again wearing a familiar grey uniform, standing up very sternly, is like running some sort of scanner or data pad over the faces of each of the prisoners as they're being escorted onto the vessel. You're going to be the first through the door out of your group, Cade. There's about 3 people before they run the scanner over you, and Inigo is right behind you. You see, as you get a little bit closer, you can hear the Imperial officer. The scanner appears to be sort of confirming people's identity, and he's listing off their name and the crimes that they are accused of, and then sort of pushing them on board where some guards are unmanacling them and taking them to their cells, presumably.
Okay, so how close am I to to this officer? Like I'm the next guy, or?
There's just 3 more people before you.
Okay. I will wait till I'll wait till the next individual goes through, so there's 2 people ahead of me, and then I'll probably like kind of shoulder check the guard, like the prisoner in front of me. Hey, if you hit me, walk on my feet one more time, I'm gonna knock you out. And I just kind of like shoulder check him again and kind of shove him forward.
Okay, not a problem. As the guy 2 in front of you goes through, you do indeed bump your shoulder into the prisoner in front and give your surly speech to him. This sort of muscled, quite tall, about sort of 6 foot tall guy turns round, and you see like a look of anger on his grizzled and stubbled face as he looks at you, and he just shoves you with a huge open hand to your chest, and he's like, "Watch where you're stepping, little man," and like pushes you back a foot or so.
Little man? Little man. Yeah, you're right, big. But I see you got everything in your height, not in your brains. And I kind of shove him backwards, but this time I try and make sure I follow through, and I shove him right back in to kind of aim him towards the officer that's kind of doing the scanning, and I just shove him towards him.
Okay, not a problem. At this point, make me an athletics roll, or you can use brawl if you wish. It's just difficulty 2.
I'll use athletics.
Okay, you push this lumbering giant of a man backwards, and he stumbles back, sort of smashing the Imperial officer into the door frame of the Imperial barge. He falls to the floor, the scanner sort of skittering out of his hand and landing about 6 inches away from where he falls. He immediately lets out a cry, and a number of the stormtroopers run over and sort of point rifles at yourself and this lumbering figure of a man that you'd had the altercation with. The officer starts like pulling himself to his feet, a look of anger on his face, and smoothing down creases and brushing dirt off his imperially issued uniform. He turns to the stormtrooper. You notice he's wearing like a red patch on his shoulder, a rank of insignia. And he says, "Well, looks like we've got a couple of troublemakers here, Sergeant. Have both of them taken to solitary confinement immediately." At which point the sergeant turns to a couple of the stormtroopers behind him and says, "You heard him. Those 2, solitary confinement, cell block 1, maximum security." At which point the stormtroopers pointing guns at you gesture for you to move on board the ship.
And I won't say a thing, won't do a thing, just quietly follow. I'll kind of look my head back at Inigo and kind of nod my head just a little bit, and I'll follow.
Okay, not a problem. I'm going to... Sorry, Inigo, go ahead.
No, Inigo will just he'll nod, and while the officer's getting his stuff ready, he'll say, "Hello, Capitan, what time is breakfast? It seems the entertainment is over."
Okay. From behind you, as you walk on board, Cade, you hear Inigo saying, "Oh, what time is breakfast, sir, mon Capitan? It seems the entertainment is over." That's followed by a loud crunching sound and a slightly stifled cry. you turn around to see Inigo like lying spread eagled on the floor, and one of the stormtroopers stood over him, like holding the stock of his blaster rifle up. The stormtrooper says, "Drag this one on board." At which point, a couple of the stormtroopers start dragging like Inigo's unconscious form on board the vessel. Congratulations, 2 of you have made it on board the prison barge. I'm now going to jump to T701. Okay, as per your programming for the specific mission T7, you've been programmed to sort of reactivate when you were taken on board the ship. So you sort of reactivated as the propulsor sled was being taken on board the vessel. There's a number of other droids in this huge like packing crate effectively with you. There's what appears to be a couple of maintenance droids and what appears to be a B2 medical droid. They all appear to be powered down, as you were a few moments ago, but you start booting up. As you do, you receive like a message module that has been programmed into you, and you hear an electronic rendition of the familiar voice of Commander Sheb Gergran, although you're the only one who hears it. And the voice says, "Now, T701, we've implanted you with a communications device to match your fellows. We've given you a lick of Imperial black paint to blend you in. I'm terribly sorry about that, but it can't be helped. Now, we've also fitted you with a small explosive device that you can deploy via your manipulators. Wait until the ship is underway. We believe they'll take you to the maintenance bay, which seems to be where most of the droids are heading. Once there, locate the gravity well generator for the ship, plant the explosive, and then remotely trigger it using your programming. We believe this should feed back into the locking mechanisms to the prison cells, although we're not sure if it'll access the main confinement block, cell block 1, since that seems to be on a separate circuit. But there's nothing we can do about that. Good luck, T7, and may the Force be with you."
And I'll rock to the side in a little bit like of excitement, and then my gyro that happens to be like my head happens to swirl at a 360, kind of like giving an enjoyment of I'm awake, I'm alive, and then kind of like throw the flashlight on just to kind of get an idea of what's going on visually. But then I'm like, wait, I'm not with other humans, I don't need that. And then I'll just say beep, beep, and then kind of like just ready, and knowing that plan A was to make sure I get follow along or get to a port quickly to insert the information for the 2 prisoners.
Mm-hmm. Okay, after a few moments, you sort of rocking excitedly from side to side, you hear a sort of sound, and the front of the packing crate folds down. You see what appears to be a number of maintenance droids and what looks like a large metallic humanoid of some droid type you're not familiar with. He looks in there and in a metallic voice says, "It appears we have one of the droids activated prematurely. I was told they would all be powered down for this consignment." The maintenance droids and their wheeled forms just sort of shrug, raising their spindly metallic arms, and he says, "Well, no matter, let's see what we have. 3 maintenance droids and 2 astromechs." He looks across at the astromechs, points at the other astromech in the crate and says, "A T8 unit, I've not seen many of those. Have that taken up to astrogation immediately. Have the 2 maintenance droids and that old T7 unit brought to engineering immediately." At which point the maintenance droids nods and they wheel themselves into the crate, pick up the deactivated droids and start wheeling them out and onto the ship. One of the maintenance droids moves up towards you, its spindly metal hands sort of reaching out towards you, and then it stops, almost so it's looking a little bit confused at the fact you're activated. And then in binary it says, "Please follow me to engineering. Comply."
And complying, and then I'll sit back on my back wheel, and as if it's just like, okay, here we go. And then you can see my legs extend a little bit, and I'm just like, you can see I'm following. There's no trying to trick him or anything. It's just this is what I have to do. I'm following.
Okay, no problems. You are all on board the prison barge. Effectively the on ramp is where the docking claws normally are for the TIE fighters. As you are taken on board T7, you turn sharply right and you begin heading towards the engineering block at the back of the vessel, near to where the propulsion system is located. As you head in, you can see that it's a large chamber with a bewildering variety of equipment in there. You see that most of the power systems of the ship would appear to run through here, and there's a large mechanism in the center, almost like a sort of drive system, although it doesn't look entirely like a normal hyperdrive that you would be familiar with. Can you please make me either a computers or mechanics roll, difficulty 2?
Okay. And this check is for...
This check is to identify the various bits of equipment. Yeah.
All right. So this is equipment. I'm going to go ahead and do mechanics, just because it's kind of falls hand in hand. So that's going to be...
No problem.
And you said difficulty of average.
So,
all right. Whoa.
Okay, not a problem. An interesting roll. So I'm going to say with that roll, you are able to eventually identify what is the main gravity well generator of the ship. However, it takes you some time since you're being closely watched by the other droids. It seems as though the engineering section, surprisingly for an Imperial vessel, is mainly staffed by droids. There's not really many organics in here, and as you move around, it quickly becomes obvious why. There's a sort of looking at some of the readouts, there's quite a high level of background radiation in this department, perhaps coming from the large gravity well generator that seems to be generating the artificial gravity throughout the ship. As you're moving around checking things, the ship shudders and a vibration runs through the entire length of it, and you recognize the signs that the ship is starting to decouple itself from the station and begin on its journey. You hear the telltale of the thrusters firing, and the ship slowly begins to move away from the station, gathering speed.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and lock onto the barge itself with my magnetics, so I don't just roll freely from just taking off in inertia and weird science stuff. So I'm going to kind of just lock down just to keep rolling, but just to make sure that I'm stay in place and I keep with my wheels and my gyros, and kind of like something probably most astromechs would do, just a minor lockdown, just to, you know, so they don't rock and tip over and fall.
Not a problem. You notice that the artificial gravity in this section is actually quite weak, presumably because, as you are, most of the droids are capable of magnetizing themselves to nearby surfaces or otherwise attaching themselves, which you do successfully. There's no roll or anything required. Now I'm going to jump back over to the other two guys. Okay, Cade and Inigo. Inigo, you wake up. The last thing you remember was seeing like the butt of a stormtrooper's rifle descending rapidly towards your face. And as you wake up, you're in what appears to be a cell of some kind. There's only you in there. It's a very small sort of 10-foot by 10-foot cell. It has one of the translucent blue force screens over the front, serving as a door. And just beyond that, you can see the cell opposite you. There appears to be someone sitting in it, but they're just sort of out of sight of the door. There's a basic bunk bed in this room, you know, just a cot almost. There's a small tray of, let's not beat around the bush, it's slop that would probably serve as your food, and a beaker of what you hope is water, just lying in the center of the floor. Occasionally, as you're sort of looking around, you see a squadron of stormtroopers march past the force screen of your cell. Occasionally, one of them will pause and check, presumably, a readout or the instrumentation panel on the outside of your cell to make sure everything's going well. They turn around and put a thumb up to the rest of their squadron, rejoin them, and continue marching on. You can feel that the ship is definitely moving. As I say, there's this vibration running through the deck plating of the vessel, and you can tell it appears to be gathering speed.
Inigo will drink some of the water. He'll get his surroundings, look at his neighbor. But the other thing he's doing is he's counting how many times they come, kind of singing to himself, but he's actually counting until the next time they show to see if they do a standard patrol and how long it takes them.
Indeed, they do appear to be doing a circuit of this cell block, and it takes them about 10 minutes to do a circle of this particular block you're in. So about, like I said, about every 10 minutes they pass by the front of your cell and check on it. I'm going to jump over to Cade now. Cade, you, having been conscious the entire time, you're aware of being escorted towards the cell blocks. An airlock door is open, and you become aware for the first time as you leave the docking area where you can see the various TIE fighters being prepared, etc. That as the airlock door opens, the gravity appears to be orientated differently in the prisoner blocks. So whereas you would have been walking on the floor before, you are now effectively walking on the wall as you move in. A number of the prisoners who are led in beside yourself appear to have trouble with this, and they're basically booted in by the stormtroopers, who were obviously practiced at this and have no problems reorientating themselves. Can you please make me an athletics roll, difficulty 2? Okay.
No, not exactly.
Okay, you stumble a little bit, but you just about manage to sort of orientate yourself, and you're led past what appear to be 9 of these sort of ring-shaped cell blocks that are sort of move around the ship. You can hopefully see them on the diagram there, and you appear to be being led towards the front of the ship. As you get past the 9th cell block, the prisoners that are with you have been sort of peeled off in 1s and 2s to various different cells, along with the unconscious Inigo, who's been dragged off by the stormtroopers carrying him. You reach what appears to be, again, another airlock door directly in front of you, but this one looks extremely complex. There's instrumentation panels, readouts, there's like a palm print analyzer, what looks like an iris scanner of all things. It looks like this door has tip-top security on it. The stormtrooper sergeant who has been escorting you steps up to the identification area, presses his hand on the palm print analyzer, takes his helmet off and looks into the iris identifier. There's 2 beeps from the door, at which point he takes out what appears to be a key card from around his neck and puts it in a slot on the door. There is a 3rd beep and then a series of 3 beeps close together, and the doors hiss open, at which point you are unceremoniously dragged through by the stormtroopers who have pretty much sort of carried you and hustled you through the vessel. As you're led in, you see that this appears to be an extremely high security cell block, and you can see stenciled on the wall in Galactic Basic, it says solitary confinement prisoner cell block 1. Each of the cell blocks in here not only appear to have the force screens in front of them, but they also have like emergency sort of almost like blast doors, which although they're not closed at the minute, you expect could be locked down in the case of any attempted escape. You are unceremoniously dragged over to one of these cells. As you're dragged past another cell where there appears to be a very malnourished and sort of weak man with long, straggly hair, sort of lying curled up in a fetal position on the floor of his cell. You can only see part of his face, the rest of it's covered by his hair, and he appears to be missing an eye, and there's terrible scarring all down one side of his face. You think you hear him whimper slightly as you're sort of dragged past, but you don't really have time to stop and make anything of it. The security screen is brought down over one of these maximum security cells, and you're rudely shoved into it. The stormtrooper who pushes you in, saying in the slightly distorted voice through his helmet, "We'll see how smart your mouth is after a spell in solitary confinement." And then you hear the of the force screen coming back up again as he presses his hand to the instrumentation at the side of the door. at which point he turns around and marches off. You hear the sound of his footsteps clanking on the metal footplate, growing fainter as they disappear into the distance. You can tell, Cade, that the hum of the ship's engines is quite subdued here. You must be very near to the front of the ship.
And I would probably just assess my surroundings as quickly as I could. Just quickly check out what this cell looks like. If there's anything, is there a bed? Is there any sort of ventilation shaft?
Okay.
Is there something?
The cell that you're in is extremely small, even smaller than the one that Inigo is stashed in. There's pretty much room for you to like stand up. That is all. There's no bed in here. It's the size of a tiny broom cupboard. There's very little room for you to move. You could just about turn around if you had to, but there's no space for you to lie down, sleep, anything along those lines.
Well, when in solitary, if I have the room, I'll probably just start doing push-ups or some sort of something. And I will make a mental note of the individual that we walked past on the way to my cell, and I'll probably try and remember the picture of Berek Nur in my head, and what he looked like.
Okay, the picture you saw of Berek Nur was of a young, sort of, well, probably just moving into middle-aged man, sort of quite ruggedly handsome, quite well built. He had one of his eyes was a sort of gleaming cybernetic eye, and he had short cut pepperbox hair on the picture you saw of him. But obviously, as your mind flashes back, you remember Gergran, the commander, saying that was quite an old picture, and there was no telling what he looked like after his spell in Imperial confinement. As you're sort of thinking back to this, all of you on the ship, you hear a soft female voice sounding throughout the ship, broadcast through the intership communications network. And the female voice says, "This is Commander Typho. We'll be moving into the asteroid field shortly. When we reach the other side, we'll be making the jump to hyperspace. Ensure that all prisoners are locked down, all cells on at maximum security. We have a particularly important prisoner on board. We need to ensure that they all get safely to the core, where they will be interrogated personally by the Emperor's finest interrogators." Message ends.
All right, hearing that, I would probably rock a little bit and kind of like, oh boy, this is going to be fun. But knowing that I can't really say what I really want to say because I am with droids and they can't understand 100% what I'm saying. But for those that can hear me and have an idea of what I would be saying, was we're basically saying we're on the right ship.
Okay, just to remind all you guys at this point, as I said earlier, you all have these subdermal comlinks, and they're built so that you can effectively just sort of whisper really quietly, and everyone who's on that sort of encrypted network would be able to hear you as though you were speaking normally, to make it as easy as possible for you to maintain communications. Because although the rebellion can get you on board, as they have done, they have no control over what the Imperials do with you once you're on board. So they've done their best to fit you up so you can stay in communications with each other. But you know that once you get on board the ship, the health of the rebellion, the health of this mission, lies solely in your hands, or manipulators, as T7 would probably refer to them. So as the ship starts moving through this asteroid field, there are a few boom, boom, boom sound of very small asteroids striking the outside of the ship. Nothing enough to cause it damage. As the ship starts moving through the asteroids, you notice, Inigo, that the stormtroopers appear to be fastidiously going around all the cells and sort of double checking the locks, etc. No doubt so that once the ship does make the jump to hyperspace, there won't be any additional problems.
I'll once I start hearing it go through the asteroid, I'll probably get onto the communicator. Inigo, you dead yet?
No, but I wasn't served any breakfast. What time is it?
It's time that we make our move. I have an idea that I think the prisoner beside mine is the man we're looking for, Berek Nur. This guy's missing an eye, although he looks like Poodoo, if there's any other way of putting it. So I say we get something going. T7, you all right?
Beep, beep, beep. Yep.
All right. Look, we got to get a way to get. We need to find a way to get our kit. Plus, this maximum security level is going to be a little bit flavorful to get out of.
You are noticing that although you guys are actually hearing Cade through the encrypted comm signal, whereas T7 and Inigo, you're both hearing each other fine, the voice of Cade occasionally like fades out, or there's intermittent interference. You may assume that perhaps the high security level has some additional shielding or protection which is distorting the signal. It's still getting through, so you can still sort of understand what he's saying, but occasionally a bit of his voice will fade out, or his audio will become quite choppy.
And let's go. Got a plan?
You have a plan? That's great.
What? No. We try to make some sort of a plan.
As you're saying this, Cade, and you're hearing T7's beeped reply, you notice two stormtroopers walking to the cell next to yours, and with them is what appears to be quite a cruel-looking man in an Imperial uniform. Hovering next to him is a round, spherical, black droid with all manner of hypodermics and other unpleasant instruments festooning it as it floats a few inches away from this man's shoulder. He walks to the cell next to yours and says, "Well then, Mr. Nur, it's time for your questioning. I do hope you'll be more forthcoming than you were on our last 7 questions. Otherwise, I'll have no option but to turn you over to my associate here." As he says, it's like and numerous unpleasant instruments emerge on manipulators from the inside of this black interrogation droid that hovers near him. You hear a whimper from the cell next to you that you can't quite see at this point in time, and you hear him saying, "Look, I've tried to tell. I've told you. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is." At which point the man replies, "Well, I for my part would believe you, Mr. Nur. However, the commander insists that until you give us the information we need to know, your questionings will continue." At which point this unseen figure with this slightly pitiable and very weak-sounding voice says, Look, I've told you everything I know. Look, just don't send me to her again." At which point the man responds and says, "Well, perhaps we won't have to bring her into this questioning, but only if you're cooperative, Mr. Nur." He clicks his fingers, points at the cell and says, "You two men, bring our guest with us. We'll take him to the interrogation suite." At which point the 2 stormtroopers enter the cell next to you, and they drag out this emaciated and pitifully malnourished looking individual. It almost looks as though he's like a living skeleton. The skin is stretched so tightly around his bones. He's wearing what looks as though it might once have been like a brown leather jacket and a pair of flight pants, but they're ragged, torn, covered in grime and other unpleasant materials. As they try and escort him out, his legs just give way as though they've got no strength whatsoever, and he's pretty much grabbed by the arms and dragged forward bodily by these 2 stormtroopers. The grey-suited figure with the interrogation droid smiles and then says, "Bring him along now," turns on his heel and begins walking down one of the corridors through the ship, the droid hovering after him. You hear the pitiable sort of groaning of this skeletal, almost Robinson Crusoe-esque figure as he's dragged through the corridors, his feet scraping against the metal of the floor by these implacable, faceless, white-suited stormtroopers. His moaning begins to fade away as he's dragged around the corner and out of sight.
And then, kind of like with when he was watching all that, what I was beginning to say was basically we're almost to destination 1, engineering, processing, and then kind of like the last word will be set in motion. So I can actually can say it out loud, and then they know that I know that's where we're heading.
Indeed, and as you say that, as though it was triggered by something inside your programming, T7, you hear, and only you hear, a small voice inside you saying, "Explosive armed and ready to be deployed." As you're doing this, the engineering section, T7, is full of a dizzying array of different droids. They're hustling about, checking systems, checking technical readouts, etc. You can hear the binary babble of numerous droids around you, some of them reading out fuel consumption statistics, some of them commenting on the percentage of power that the ship is at. You're currently at 35% of maximum thrust. A number of the other droids are saying the amount of time, which is 2 standard hours, until the hyperdrive is powered up and ready to make a jump. One of the droids says, "We have at least 4 hours before we leave the asteroid field. It won't be safe to make a hyperspace jump within it, but have the drive prepared and ready to go as soon as the order comes from Commander Typho." At which point the other droid says, "Acknowledged," and returns to its station.
Okay, and I'll do a quick self-diagnosis of basically the bomb that's inside and which compartment, and to figure like time that's set on it, or if it's a detonation of a situation.
Okay, it is effectively a thermal detonator. It has been made with a magnetic grapple to adhere to any metallic surface. Since your systems have been programmed to trigger this remotely, you can plant it, grapple it onto something. You can then either trigger it via a signal sent from yourself, or you can set the timer before you deploy it. However, if you do that, once you've deployed it, you can't turn it off. All you'd be able to do is trigger it prematurely if you wish.
All right, and search memory banks to the designation of the bomb setting.
Sorry, what do you mean by the designation?
Basically, character remembrance of where was I supposed to set it at?
Okay, that's not a problem at all. You have pretty much the plan in your memory banks. According to the plan, you were to grapple it onto the gravity well generator, since that's adjacent to a lot of the other power systems in the. It draws quite heavily from the power plant of the ship. Once on there, you were to detonate it, and until they can reroute power to auxiliary, that should give you quite a lot of time to actually do what you need to do. And it should also disable at least some of the force fields around the cell block. Although, as was mentioned in the plan, the maximum security wing is on an isolated system with its own power supply.
All right. So a lot of information to write. Okay.
That's not a problem. If you need a reminder at any point, just let me know, because you do have it all in your memory banks. You can access it like that.
Yep, no problem. And so basically, I'm hearing what they're saying, and then I'm basically need to grapple this onto the gravity well generator. Okay.
Okay, not a problem. Meanwhile, Inigo, as you're sort of looking out of your cell, you see what appears to be a fairly beautiful looking woman wearing dark clothing. She's walking freely through the ship. You spot her as she passes by your cell. As she passes, she crosses a patrol of stormtroopers who are doing their sort of 10-minute rotating patrol. The stormtroopers stop, stand up, and they salute this woman as she walks past. She has sort of long red hair hanging over her shoulders. She's wearing a hood. You can see it, you catch sight of her face as she's looking at these stormtroopers. So can you please make me a perception roll? It's only difficulty 1.
Not me, right?
Okay.
Sorry,
No, that was for Inigo.
Okay.
Okay. As you've made your roll, Inigo, you sort of catch a better glimpse of this woman's face. You see, although she might have once been quite beautiful, she has like a slightly unhealthy, sort of waxy look to her complexion, and there's an odd sort of yellowish, like jaundiced tinge to her skin, and her eyes have a sort of similar unhealthy coloration. She just sort of huffs sort of disregardingly as the stormtroopers salute her and just carries on walking straight past, paying them no attention. The stormtroopers wait until she's gone. You hear her footsteps disappear into the distance towards the front of the ship. As she leaves, one of the stormtroopers turns to his companion and says, how did someone like that end up on a prison vessel like this? The other stormtrooper shrugs and says, I heard some sort of failed mission, fallen out of favour, that sort of thing. Why else would you get assigned a duty like this? You know, only us rejects get sent on a prison run. It's a cakewalk after all. At which point the third stormtrooper sort of butts in and puts his hand out and he goes, listen, you two, stow it. It's not healthy to talk about those things. You never know who might be listening. Let's get back on our patrol. And they nod and sigh and continue moving past your cell on their regular patrol, Inigo.
Inigo will turn so he can communicate with Cade and says, I got a plan, Cade. All we need is yellow paint. You need a red wig and a black cloak. Other than that, we got to get our way to the infirmary. If you can, T7 can get orders to send you to the infirmary. Or us to the infirmary. But they seem afraid of this red-headed woman with yellow skin. So be watchful of her.
Already heard something about that. They took Berek Nur away, headed towards some sort of interrogation room.
As Cade is saying this, at the sort of volume that you guys can hear it over his comlink, you hear a pitiful and absolutely agonized screaming. It starts off sounding like the voice of a normal man screaming, and it gradually rises in pitch until it sounds like a noise that could not be torn from a normal human throat. And then it, almost as though it's switched off by a switch, it cuts out and stops.
Inigo will make comment. That wasn't in the in our recruitment briefing.
Yeah. Look, make all the jokes you want, but T7, we got to enact this plan now. Let's go. Let's do this. We got to save him. Get off this damn ship.
Roger there, Philip.
Okay, no problem. So T7, are you planning to plant this explosive, and how do you plan to go about it?
Basically, I'm going to go ahead and do like do a round, just kind of like I'm figuring like I'm doing some kind of round, and as I would get near it, kind of get a quick sensor of the information and trying to find the best place, and then keep working around, and then kind of get the right situation, keep looking around me, and I will then get near another droid, and I will actually engage with it, and as I'm trying to do it, my arm will kind of go out, kind of come out, and try to grab his bolt, his training bolt, and do the shock on it to actually make him my not my deterrent, my distraction.
Okay, not a problem. You can indeed see that all of the droids, as is Imperial policy, are fitted with restraining bolts. You know that you yourself have the exterior casing of a restraining bolt fitted to you for appearance's sake, but there is no mechanism in it whatsoever. It cannot be triggered. It's just a dummy, effectively. As you see, there is a maintenance droid next to you. If you think of like Johnny 5 out of Short Circuit, that's sort of what they look like. They're not very talkative. They really only communicate in binary, and they're not terribly good conversationalists. They're mainly concerned with facts, figures, readouts, and doing their job. They're not very high orders of droids. You see one of them is working on this large mechanism. He appears to be monitoring the power output from the power plant to the gravity well generator, and the effect that that's having on the rest of the ship.
All right, and go ahead, and when I do that, basically I'll do the my shock of my energy slingshot through it to kind of give him the jolt of the taking out the energy inside the straining bolt, so that he actually does become alive and sentient in a sense and cause a distraction that I'm hoping for. And
okay,
then once he,
not a problem. Sorry, you were saying once he...
Yeah, basically once that happens and there's kind of more of a commotion, then that's when I'll go ahead and just quickly shoot out the bomb onto the gravity well generator.
Okay, not a problem. I'm not going to ask you to make a roll for running the shock through the restraining bolt. That's fairly easy. As you do, there's a brief blue flash that shorts out the restraining bolt. You see a wisp of acrid smoke billowing from it. The maintenance droid immediately starts waving its forearms about, lets out a noise, and reels backwards on its wheels, waving its manipulators about as sparks spray out of it in quite a confused manner. You notice a number of the other droids move in to take a look at it. Now, I'm going to ask you to make either a stealth or a skullduggery roll, difficulty 2, to get the explosive on unnoticed. However, you will get a bonus dice because of the distraction.
All right, I'll definitely use stealth over skullduggery. I am not programmed that way. And then a bonus die, and you said a difficulty of 2?
That's correct.
Okay, so...
Obviously, you can use force points if you wish.
Oh, yeah, I should. You're right.
You've got a stack of them, why not?
Yeah, that's right. And we have to let you use them for us. So let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, not a problem. With the rest of the droids in the engineering bay entirely distracted, you produce on one of your manipulators this small thermal detonator. It's disguised to look like a normal ship's sort of power cell, effectively, so it's not immediately noticeable. Now, do you set it for a particular time, or are you just planting it and planning on activating it?
Knowing that what happened with the I can't remember what you called it, but it's the radio transference, that having it to activate, I need to make sure to lower them enough so I can actually get the signal from my activation, because I don't know how long this is going to take. But I will set it for 1 hour and 30 minutes. And if we aren't done, then I'll basically can it remotely be turned off?
It can't be remotely turned off once it's planted. You can remotely sort of detonate it prematurely, but that is all. Once it's planted, it'll be set to go off at whatever time you've specified. You'd have to manually get to it and sort of turn it off. Okay.
So then basically it probably would have been set to, once we get going to do things, it probably would have taken on average maybe 3 to 3.5 hours. So that's probably what it was set to. And if it gets done quicker, then it can be detonated remotely.
Okay, not a problem. You grapple this disguised thermal detonator onto the outside of the gravity well generator, and you hear the reassuring of the magnetic grapple as it fastens on. It's been quite cunningly disguised, so like I say, just like a normal power cell. There's hundreds of them throughout this section. However, as you're grappling it on, you see one of the you see a number of the droids appear to have subdued the wildly flailing maintenance droid that you set off as your distraction. You watch as one of the more humanoid-looking droids, sort of higher-order droids who can communicate in galactic base. They seem to be serving as like supervisors in this section. He steps over to an instrumentation panel, presses a button on, and he says, "We appear to have a malfunctioning droid down here. Request technician team immediately." At which point you hear a garbled voice on the other end saying, "Understood, S5. We're sending a team of technicians down now. They should be with you in 10 minutes. Understood." And it then moves away and goes back to its duties, saying briefly to the droids who are subduing this flailing maintenance droid, "Keep that droid under control. Technicians will take it to maintenance shortly. Once that is done, return to your duties."
And
all the droids confirmed.
And since I have that little time, I'm going to go ahead and take one of the stations and plug in and try to find prisoner number 7299-07 Cade, and then 729908 Indigo Stasi. Try to find out where they are because, well, they were supposed to be together, so let's hope they are, and then try to find where they are designated.
Okay, not a problem. Can you please make me a computer's roll, difficulty 2?
Oh, okay. I can definitely try. And that is... And since we are going to go ahead and do that with, I'm going to go ahead and bypass the security, do any kind of code breaking, and then, of course, do it defensively, and using my technical aptitude, it'll take half the time.
Absolutely fine. Go for it.
And...
Not a problem. So basically what I'm going to say is for each of your successes that you've rolled, you can find out one piece of information about this vessel and its crew. So I presume the first two are going to be the locations of your friends, prisoner -07 and -08. So the first two bits of information you get are you see that prisoner 07, Cade, has been taken to the solitary confinement block, prisoner block 1, which is next to the bridge and the fore section of the vessel, whereas you can see Inigo is in prisoner block 3, which is the standard prisoner population, effectively. You also have 3 additional pieces of information. What would you like to find out about this vessel?
Timeline on getting to the other side of the astrofield.
Okay, you can see that it's going to take 3.5 hours for them to fully get entirely out of range of the asteroid field. They could possibly, if it was an emergency, make a hyperspace jump in 2 hours, but in order to be safe in case there's any sort of debris floating on the outskirts of the field, they're adding an extra hour on as a bit of a safety margin.
All right, and I'm thinking to myself, Intel is perfect since 2 hours and using my timeline of the bomb. And then the 4th piece of information is to just do a secondary identify for sure where Berek Nur, and I don't have a processing number for him because the other ones were made up, and so that one's going to have to be done by name and try to find out, and that should be 2.
Okay.
That would use 2 successes to get that information of where he's at, and if there was basically orders to a certain interrogation suite.
Okay, not a problem. You locate the prisoner known as Berek Nur, who is designation 7299-01. He's being held in prisoner block 1, the solitary confinement block. You see at the moment, though, he's designated as being in interrogation suite 4. You can see that he's being interrogated by someone called Rix Pavan. And there's also a mention of another Imperial employee who is only mentioned by name as Nerys Kaldin. and where you'd expect to see further information, as you had with Ravin, it just says classified.
Okay. And then just as quickly as it takes to do that, I'll go ahead and dial it back to normal for whoever's coming in. And with the commotion of the technicians that are supposed to come in and try to work on them, that's when I'll make my way behind them and kind of start whirling as if I had purpose on a mission inside the ship, because you know what I do.
Not a problem. You see a team of 4 technicians wearing sort of drab grey jumpsuits come in. They're carrying hydro spanners and other tools attached to their belts. They immediately move over and sort of shoo the droid away, restraining the malfunctioning maintenance droid, power it down and start working on that. You have no problems wheeling past them and heading down the corridor. They don't pay you any attention because you're a maintenance droid just doing droid things. They don't appear to pay you any attention whatsoever, and you find yourself looking down the central corridor of the ship. The gravity shifts abruptly as you move into it, but since you were programmed with the ship's sort of spec, you have no problems reorientating yourself, and you have the magnetics on your feet, so that's no problem at all. You can see that the ship appears to have a long central corridor with a number of rings around it. Each of these rings is a prisoner cell block holding 10 prisoners. The one that you are at the minute is cell block 10, and they decrease by 1 as they make their way towards the front of the ship until you reach prisoner block 1, which is the solitary confinement maximum security block, where you know Cade Sen is currently located.
Alrighty.
There's a number of, on each of the rings there's a stormtrooper patrol moving about, very efficiently marching about. You can see they're taking about sort of like 10-12 minutes to do a complete circuit of their particular ring of cells. And between each is a door. The doors don't appear to be massively locked in any way, since each of the cells has like a force screen stopping the prisoners from escaping. You notice each time the stormtroopers move around, they check the cells, they check the locks, etc. And in fact, as you're wheeling your way through, one of the stormtrooper patrols stops in front of you. A stormtrooper looks down at you and he says, "Where are you off to, droid?"
And I'm going to test if he understands my language, and I'm just going to say 3377, just kind of see if he understands what I'm saying. And
he stares at you for a few moments as you bleep and whir at him. One of the other stormtroopers in a slightly mocking voice says, "It's an astromech, it only speaks binary. What were you expecting it to do, be able to talk?" And he sort of playfully like cuffs his companion on the shoulder and says, "It's probably just doing some engineering work. You know what the commander's like, she's a stickler for that sort of thing. We get on our rounds, otherwise it'll be our hides."
And I'll kind of like... Yeah, and I'll go beep, 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 beep. And
the stormtrooper who'd been addressing the questions to you sort of stares at you for a few moments, and then he shrugs his shoulders and says, "Yeah, I suppose you're right." And he waves you past, and they carry on with their patrol.
And I'll just kind of like sit back again and just kind of roll to where I needed to go, and then I'll hit one of the near stations that that I would identify as something that needs to be checked on, maintained, and as I do, that's when I'm going to do more calibrations of figuring out what I need, what needs to be, where they're at, what kind of security these things are at, and then if I can through that, I'll go through one of the doors, and I will spray my what's called quick flash burning gel on the one of the primary doors. Probably it would be in section 9, I believe, or 8, and then kind of like giving way for one of the prisoners to give me another distraction so I can move forward with more ease, because a lot of stormtroopers are going to come to that section.
Okay, so you're spraying the gel to try and sort of slow them down, is that correct?
What was that last part for you?
So you're spraying this gel to try and sort of slip them or slow them down, is that correct? Sorry, the sound
No,
skipped a little bit there.
it's a burning gel, which basically is going to burn through metal, and hopefully it will kind of loosen up and break open that cell, so that that prisoner can kind of exit and give me the. And I would actually send, once he does, I'll sound the alarm so that they can come get him.
Okay, yep, not a problem. You spray this gel over the locking mechanism of the door. It's ready to be ignited. You've also got yourself already plugged into the systems here. I'm not, because you've got a load of successes, I'm not asking you to make another roll for that. And besides, setting off the alarm is a fairly trivial thing, especially for an astromech like yourself who's familiar with ship's systems. You've got the gel there ready to go off as soon as it's ignited, which obviously you can do with a spark from your manipulator. It's good to go. It's set up. You can actually just hear, after about sort of 8 or so minutes, the footfalls of the stormtroopers sort of getting closer again, as they've obviously circled around this ring of cells and are making their way back towards your position.
All right. And I mean, I don't know if you want to go to other people, but I know it's kind of on me right now. So, yeah, I'll just wait for it to see basically the screen kind of go out and watch the prisoner go free and cause some mayhem.
Indeed, as you spark off this gel, there's like a and the translucent blue force screen over the front of the cell disappears, and what appears to be a very dishevelled Rhodian comes running out of the cell. He looks like left and right, a panic expression on his bug-eyed green face. And you can see he's obviously trying to decide where to run, and then you hear a voice say, "You there, stop!" And the stormtroopers begin like running down the corridor towards him, drawing their blaster rifles. He immediately lets out a high-pitched like scream, turns and starts running down the corridor in the opposite direction to where you're heading. He's running towards the back of the ship. The stormtroopers thunder past you, paying you no mind at all, following this Rhodian. You see him slip through one of the doors and sort of disappears. The stormtroopers hustle after him.
Yep, and then I'll go ahead and use that as a full distraction to make even more of a distraction and do the alarm, so that whoever's working, they can kind of do it, and then.
Okay, indeed.
I'm 100%
on board the ship.
Yep,
You suddenly hear this noise as this klaxon starts sounding throughout the ship.
All right. And then it's mission number 4 to take out the prison cells, and I know that I just need 1 and 3 and suite 4 of interrogation.
Okay, not a problem. I'm going to jump briefly to Cade. Okay, Cade, looking out of your cell in the maximum security, when you see that the lights have gone a red colour throughout the ship, and there is this klaxon honking away in the background. You watch as the door to the maximum security wing opens, and a fairly beautiful young woman wearing dark clothing steps through the door. You see her look up at the flashing red light, and her face frowns in annoyance. She turns right, following the same direction that Berek Nur was taken in, and begins marching off down the corridor.
Okay, so is there any sort of paneling around the force field? Like any sort of panel or anything I could try and like hack into, or kind of?
There is paneling, but obviously it's sort of buried deep within the walls, the sort of instrumentation, because it's not meant to be accessed from this side. You could try and sort of jimmy open one of the panels, but it'd be very noisy. The only advantage you've got at the minute is with that massively loud klaxon going off, it might cover some of the noises you're attempting to prise one of the panels open. So you can certainly make an attempt at that, should you so wish.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll try and do this. Also, I will also jump on the communicator and say, "Inigo, what the hell did you just do?"
Well, and he stops I really don't know. I was just eating. Inigo is at that time is gathering up his gruel to use as either a distraction or to throw in someone's face.
Nice.
T7. T7, can you get these damn doors open?
That's what I'm about to do. If you just hold on to your pants. And I'm about to do it. Don't you like my distraction?
Great. Open up the doors, please. We kind
I
of
knew you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. Where the hell is Oliver Kit anyway?
And I'd be like, okay, what did you say? In character. Out of character, I mean.
Our kit. Our stuff. Our delicious laser bang sticks. Yes.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that part of the mission. I'll have to go get that. Do you want me to go get that now and then come get you? Or do you want me to come get you and then go get that?
By your adorable puppy, go get that. He's so cute. That was out of sorry, slightly out of character.
In character and out of character.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do both, and then I'll go into it, and I will lock the security sound on, so no matter what anybody does, it cannot get turned off.
Okay, not a problem. Make me a computers check. Difficulty 2, however, I will give you a bonus dice since you're already in the system, effectively.
Okay. And because I want to do this even more and really annoy these Imperial people, because, you know, I'm going to go ahead and use the Destiny. And you said it was the 2? Okay.
Yep.
Ow. I wish I was a gambler right now. All right, so just an advantage. So the advantage on that would be...
Well, what I'll do is I'll offer you a choice at this point. You can either manage to do it, but it's going to take you a lot of time to do it since these systems appear to be quite a sort of a highly secured, or I'll say you can do it in your normal rapid time. However, it will be obvious what you're doing because you'll have to physically bypass some of the systems and disable them. It's down to you what you want to do.
Yeah. Since I know we have 2 hours, and where I need to go is probably not going to take very long, but the sound is a little bit more important, and that's going to cause a lot more mayhem. I'll take my time to actually make it happen. And
Not a problem. You work on the mechanism, and after about 15 minutes, you've managed to jam this klaxon so that it's stuck on. Someone could eventually sort of reprogram the computer to turn it off, but they'd have to actually reprogram parts of the system you've sort of interfaced with. However, as that's going on, Cade, you watch as the 2 stormtroopers that dragged Berek Nur off walk back down the corridor towards his cell, dragging this individual between them. You can see he's staring directly in front of himself from his one good eye. It's glassy and rolled back in his head. He appears to be unconscious. You can see what appear to be a number of needle marks over his emaciated body. And there's also, bizarrely enough, what looks to be like almost like the impression of like fingerprints on his throat, as though someone had like grabbed his throat and squeezed it with a tremendous strength, and bruises have started to rise up. The 2 stormtroopers walk up. You see one of them look up and say, "I wonder when they're going to get that damn klaxon turned off." One of the other stormtroopers says, "Probably just a drill. You know what the commander's like with these things, keeping us on our toes." Then they unceremoniously throw the prisoner back into his cell and reactivate the force screen. You hear one of them say, "Well, we've got our own power supply here, so either way, makes no odds to us unless we're called in to deal with something else." Anyway, we best join up with the others on patrol. I don't think we'll be needed in interrogation suite 4 anytime soon. Looks like he's had about all he can take for today. The second stormtrooper says, "Well, you know what Pavan's like. He may want him back." "Do you really think this guy holds some secret technology that the Emperor's going to make use of?" The first stormtrooper shrugs and says, It's not my job to ask questions like that, and if you know what's good for you, you won't ask questions like that either. Let's just join it with the rest of the patrol and get back to business. At which point he nods and says, understood, and the two of them start walking away again down the corridor. Okay.
And I will kind of wait for them to leave, and then I will kind of see if I can get close enough in between our two cells, like in between my cell and Berek's cell. Are you Berek Nur? Hey.
You hear the voice from the other side. It's very faint. You have to strain to hear it. And he's like, oh, this is another one of your tricks. I've already told you. I don't know anything about any stealth technology. I never even saw it properly. Sekus, he had it all. Just leave me alone. You've already taken my eye. What more do you want?
Shut up. Listen, I'm part of a group. We're here to get you out. Now just keep your voice down.
You hear a soft sound like he's sobbing quietly, and he says, oh, this is just another one of her tricks, isn't it? Maybe think I've got a chance of getting free so you can get the information out of me. I don't know anything.
You just listen in here. You just keep it quiet, and we're going to get you out. But we need you to be alert. We need you to have your game on. If not, we're all going to die, and you're going to go back to that room with that lady, whoever she is.
He sobs and says, this is just you getting in my head and making me see things again, isn't it? I'm not falling for it this time. You can't do anything else to me.
Well, there is one thing we can do to you. Free you. Now shut up and just get ready.
Okay. At this point, bizarrely enough, I'm going to ask you if you can make me a coercion roll. The difficulty is 3. One of those is red.
Oh man, this is not going to work. The difficulty, okay, so it's like 2 purple, 1 red, right?
That's correct.
Sorry, this is just not going to work, but okay. What? How? How did that even...
Okay, so with your brusque and determined manner, you've actually convinced him that you are who you say you are. This isn't some trick of his captors. You hear the faint sort of flickering of hope in his voice as he says, "What? You can really get me out of there. I'd almost given up hope. It's been so long. I didn't think anyone was coming for me. I thought once I saw Sekus disappear in that TIE fight and they got me, that was it."
Well, you can thank Broko for this. We need him, and we need you. So...
You hear the sound of him sort of trying to pull himself to his feet. However, with the 2 threats that you have got, as you're saying this, you see the red-haired woman walking back down the passageway towards your cells. She stops outside Berek Nur's cell, and now she's close again. You can see this slightly waxy, unhealthy-looking colour to her face and a slight yellow tinge to her eyes. She looks in through the cells and says, "Listen, I don't have time for any of your lies or your deception. Why not make this easy on yourself? Just tell the commander what she needs to know, and this whole ordeal will be over for you, Mr. Nur." At which point, again, he breaks out into a soft sobbing, and she says, "Don't make me take the information from your mind. You know that I can do it." You hear his protestation. He says, "You can't take what's fair. Like, I don't know anything. It was Proko. He took the stealth technology. I don't know anything about it. I was just a bounty hunter. You've seen my guild identification. What more do you need to know?" The woman cruelly says, "If it were me, Mr. Nur, I would believe you. I've looked inside your mind, such as it is, and I've seen that you may not have the information and you may be telling the truth. However, I don't make the orders on this ship, more's the pity, and until they get the information they want, they're going to continue questioning you until they get to the core, and then the real professional interrogators are going to have a go at you. Is that what you want? Do you wish my master to begin interrogating you? He is far more adept at this than I. Do you wish Inquisitor Tark to deal with you personally and make you one of his projects? I'm sure you have heard of him. At this point, Cade, if you have any levels of knowledge in core worlds, you can make a roll on that. Difficulty would be 2.
I don't have any ranks in it, but
you can still roll your basic skill. That's fine.
Okay. I know nothing.
You have heard some vague rumours in the rebellion that this Inquisitor Tark is supposed to be a particularly brutal Imperial Inquisitor who's adept at sort of getting people to think the way he wants them to think. There was something about some altercation he had with the rebellion on an outer rim planet, but you can't remember the details. You only heard about it in rumour and passing. But he's definitely a figure of dread amongst the rebellion, more so than most other Inquisitors.
I'll just basically sit and listen. I'm not going to. I don't want to draw any attention to myself, especially after like hearing that she pulls information out of mines. The last thing I would want, knowing that although I don't like to mess around when it comes to spilling any sort of secrets, if it's against my will, especially with a. Now, I mean, would I assume that this person is kind of a Force user if she says that she can just pull things out of mines, or is it like certain races that can naturally do that? Or
there are a few races who are supposed to have like natural abilities like that. However, her appearance, aside from her unhealthy complexion, looks human. It's not like a native ability that most humans have, so that would be a valid assumption. In fact, as you're pondering this, she walks over, so she stood outside your cell and regards you coolly. There's a sort of cold look of detachment on her face, as though her facial muscles aren't connected to whatever emotions she's feeling, and she peers at you through yellowed eyes that seem to reflect the red light of the emergency lighting quite strangely. Now, I'm going to ask you, Cade, in terms of your character, who is the person that your character trusts most in the galaxy?
No one. I don't trust. My trust has been shattered by many dealings with the Empire before I even joined the rebellion. Being pulled into some terrible, sick games by bored Imperial officers, and being double-crossed by people who I was trying to hide from the Empire, and then realizing the rebellion was around. Building trust with me comes very slowly.
Okay, not a problem. As she stands looking at you, she raises a black-gloved hand and holds it out in your direction, and you feel a strange vibration run through your head, almost as though you'd like laid your head against a speaker that was playing like a heavy bass note. And for a few moments, the light appears to dim in the corridor. Her outline flickers, and for a few moments, there's no one standing in the corridor. Then she reappears again as though she'd never been gone, lowers her hand, frowns for a few moments, then says, "Interesting," turns and walks off down the corridor.
Watching her walk away, as soon as she's kind of without like away from earshot or anything to that effect, I'll probably just lean back. So I'm just kind of sitting in my cell with my knees drawn up, and kind of lean out. Don't worry, where we're heading, Nur. She's never gonna bother us. She's never gonna bother you.
You hear him say in a very slightly frightened voice, "Oh, be careful. She can get into your head and make you see things." Well, when I first went to Alderaanian, I was hired by an old noblewoman who escaped the destruction of the planet to escort her there. When when they first interrogated me, it made me think that I was talking to that noblewoman. I could have sworn it was her. I could see her. I could hear the rustle of the fabrics in her dress. I could smell her perfume, everything.
Just mind tricks. Don't pay it no never mind. Anyway. Alright. Inigo. It's about time we get the hell out of here.
Yes. I'm waiting on you, sir.
I'm waiting on you. I mean, what the hell? You know, maybe we should have sat down and kind of hashed this out better. All right. Well, let's crack these doors.
Alrighty then.
Okay, so Katie, you going to try and jimmy off one of the panels and get at the doors, or?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna. I don't really have much of a choice. I'll have to try and do that.
Okay, this is a straight brawn roll since you're just trying to like prise off a chunk of the wall, effectively. The difficulty is 3. Obviously, you can spend destiny points if you wish.
You know what? Yeah, I think I will.
I will also say that if you want to take more time over it, you can have a bonus dice, but the downside to that is it will be noisier because you're doing it that way. So you can either be noisy and take a bonus dice, or you can be a bit quieter, but you won't get the bonus dice.
I'll actually try and be as quiet as possible. So I'll flip a destiny, and I'll gain a boost or lower the difficulty.
It will upgrade one of your dice, so one of your green dice will become a yellow dice.
Right, roger that. Okay, and big money? Oh, no whammies. All the whammies. Okay.
I'll let you decide what the advantage is in a minute, but for the minute you sort of struggle fruitlessly against this wall paneling. However, since you're in the maximum security block, it's really heavy duty. It's all been double welded with hydro welders. It doesn't appear to be budging. However, if you can think of a way to give yourself an advantage, or perhaps give one of your companions an advantage, feel free to narrate how you do so.
Okay. I'm trying, just trying to kind of hold it, and I just, there's no way. But then I remember that a lot of these old THXs are very much kind of built the same, all very, every cell is kind of the same way. So I'll quickly go into my subdermal communicator. Inigo, listen, there's a panel to the right. If you have a look at that, if you pop that, you'd be able to get in, switch a couple, and then I kind of go through the motions of a quick little kind of try to jimmy the force field to kind of wink it out, and I'll give him a boost die for his next thing.
Okay, not a problem. So, Inigo, over these subdermal comms, you hear Cade telling you how you can jimmy one of these panels off and potentially get into the workings of your cell and deactivate the force field.
Okay, Inigo will he'll follow the instructions given to him. You do hear a little singing over the comm as he's trying to concentrate, but you probably think that you really don't know what to think. He's just trying to do his best. So that would be, what, 2 difficulty?
It's going to be either a computers or a mechanics roll for you. The difficulty will be 2 because you're not in the maximum security block, and you will get a blue boost dice because of Cade's instructions and him walking you through it.
We'll go with mechanics. They're both the same, and we shall roll. That's not good.
Okay, not a problem. T7, over the comms, you hear Cade talking Inigo through how he can potentially take one of these panels off. And after a few moments, Inigo, it's just not happening.
And he goes, and I'll be like, it'll be kind of soft beeps, and it'll be like, I think I know why. I need to get your stuff so I can deactivate signal jammer that's actually not letting anybody do that. Once I deactivate that, that might work, but by that time, I just might as well open the force field myself. But I'm
Inigo
almost there.
Inigo jumps on. See, Cade, everything works out as he goes back to sit down, work on his food.
Gear, let's get your gear. I'm sorry that I forgot about that. I have my gear inside me. I forgot you guys don't have your gear inside you.
Okay, and as you're saying this, T7, you've reached what you know from the schematics of this vessel is effectively the guard quarters. There's a sort of guard room, a bunk room, and a combined sort of weapons room built onto each of these cell blocks for the guards who man it. You would know from the schematics that inside there is like a secure locker where the effects of prisoners on that sort of ring of cells are placed and securely locked.
And I can imagine myself like running, like literally screaming down the corridor in probably like a speed 2 if you want to give a speed progress for or double movement, let's put it that way.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I get through this door and it's like almost dead stop and like, okay, I pretend I know I'm supposed to be here and I'm doing it slowly, and I'll start activating my cargo scanner that's inside.
Mm-hmm.
And then start finding anything to do with 722 or 729901, 729907, and 8 for their personal effects.
Okay. Now, obviously, you've sort of not entered like the high security area, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to assume that you've made it to block 3. So the ring you're on, you know that in the room ahead of you there is a secure locker which has the contents confiscated from the prisoners on this block. That would include Inigo's equipment. Cade's would be stored in a similar locker, because I'd say they're all fairly standard layout, but in the high security block with like more security on it.
Okay. So we'll just go step by step on trying to find these pieces of gear that they should have stored inside them.
Okay. So you open the door, and as you do, you can see there's 4 what appear to be off-duty stormtroopers. They're not wearing their armor. They're just wearing the sort of all-over black body sleeves that they have under the armor. They're sat around drinking, eating their food, etc. A couple of them are lying on their bunks, like reading from data pads or just generally like chatting to each other. You can see the 2 are eating, have a set of like chance cubes that they're throwing on the table, occasionally pushing a couple of credits between each other, playing some sort of game. They sort of look up as you enter.
All right. And I'll start squeaking on, but this time I'll actually be saying something just in case they are doing it. Don't you guys hear the alarms blurring? They need your help out there. It's happening in cell block 8. They need you. More people, the better.
One of the off-duty stormtroopers looks across at a guy who's on the bunk with the data slate, and he says, "Jones, have you got any idea what this droid's saying?" He's like, Jones says, "Hold on a second, Rek. Just let me turn the translation module on my data slate." And he presses a few things on the data slate and then says, "Say again, droid."
The alarm is blurring. Don't you hear it? They need your help in cell block 8, 9, and 10.
A very mechanical voice from the data slate repeats what you've said in Galactic Basic. And he says something about the klaxon going off. Apparently we need it in the cell blocks at the rear of the vessel. One of the stormtroopers stops just as he's about to throw these chance cubes, and he looks up and says, "We've not received any orders to go and help with an emergency, have we?" "No, not as far as I'm aware," says Jones.
Your orders are done now.
Your voice is relayed through the translation module of the data slate. The irritated man who's been identified as Rek puts down the chance cubes, turns around to UT7, and he says, "Look, we don't take orders off an astromech. Our orders come through the normal chain of command. If the commander wanted us to do anything, we'd have heard something. We've got comms in it. Jones, get on the comms and check these orders with the commander." which point
And
he
also,
goes, oh, puts his data slate down, gets up and starts walking over to an instrumentation panel.
and I'll start blaring the hollow thing of. Let's see. I'm trying to remember who I actually saw. If I saw Neris Caldin or Caldine, I think that's how I spelt it. Or Talk.
Maurice Caldane.
Norris. Did I see any of those individuals visually?
You would have known that the person identified as Rek was potentially one of the people who saluted her, based on it, because obviously you couldn't see him due to his armor, but based on the height and the sort of width of him, he does conform to the same dimensions as one of the men who saluted her as she passed.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things. So one is definitely going to be deception, because I'm going to go into my computer bank, simulate word per word with the voice simulation of Rick's Perun or Perrin, or that's how I spelled it. So my spelling is horrible when it comes to words. And basically that's what's going to happen. So it's going to be a deception of a voice and with words of make sure you get all troopers off duty, onto duty in base in cell blocks 8 through 10.
Okay, can you make me a deception roll? The difficulty is 2, however, I'm going to flip a destiny to make one of those red.
And that's exactly what I was going to do myself.
Well, you've still got many light side points, so feel free.
Yeah. So it's going to be 2, 1 red. Let's see, what else do I have? It's going to be through my Holo Messenger, which is only going to be voice, and nothing else. Okay, so it's technically a 50-50.
Go for it. Okay, you try that, and the voice comes through, but it's got an odd sort of like mechanical edge to it. You've not really captured the voice entirely right. The stormtrooper identified as Rek looks up and he goes, "That doesn't sound right." Jones, confirm with the commander, at which point Jones presses a button on the instrumentation panel and says, this is Stormtrooper Block 3, Rek 341, requesting confirmation of orders to deal with an emergency in the rear cell blocks. Do you read, Commander Typho? At which point you hear a fairly smooth and even-toned female voice saying, "This is Commander Typho to the Stormtrooper barracks on Cell Block 3. I have no idea what you're talking about, Stormtrooper 314. There has been no emergency to the best of my knowledge. I believe the klaxon is due to a mechanical malfunction. We have technicians looking into it at the moment. Hold your current position until notified otherwise, and the proper authorization codes have been given." Understood, Commander. Will do. And he takes his hand off the comms button, turns round to Rek and says, "Well, there you go, Rek. We've got no orders. Looks like this droid's malfunctioning. Maybe we should take it down to maintenance and get its restraining bolt checked out." At which point Rex stands up from the table, sort of pushes the chance cubes away from himself, turns around towards you, T7, walks towards you, and then says, "Come with me, Astromech. I'm going to take you down and have you reprogrammed. Quick memory wipe up to sort out whatever quirks are causing these malfunctions."
All right, in front of me, my 2 orange rest plating that comes up kind of opens up, and 2 electrical lightning will start arcing from inside, and it's a little ball about, I don't know, as big as a if you played marbles, one of the big boulders will kind of appear, and then if you want to initiate an initiative, but I'm going to go ahead and just shoot it at him as soon as he gets basically close enough. They're all close enough, so.
Well, he's not expecting it, so you will get effectively a surprise attack, so feel free to make your attack roll. I will give you a bonus die since they are very much not expecting an astromech to suddenly go mental on them with electricity. The difficulty is 2.
Alrighty. And I'm going to go ahead, just because I need this little thing to work, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And I'm going to use the Destiny, because I am not good at this, but I have been trying to learn.
Okay, so you're not successful in doing any actual damage beyond a slight
No damage.
shock to them, but you do have an advantage. So
Yep,
if you can
and
narrate, that would somehow put you in an advantageous position. Feel free.
That is actually going to trigger the disorient too. So for 2 rounds, he's going to be disoriented. He's going to kind of like do a quick shock, and he's going to be disoriented for 2 rounds.
Okay, not a problem. Rex staggers backwards and like collapses into the table. The chance cubes and the credits on the table go flying up into the air. You see Jones and the other 2 stormtroopers in here who've not yet identified themselves run to the far wall where the blaster rifles are hung on the wall, and immediately, not even stopping to put their armor on, just start grabbing their blasters off the wall rack.
All right. Crap. Think, T101.
Okay, that will be their action, sort of running and grabbing their weapons.
Okay, so you said the table flipped, right?
That's correct.
All right, cool. I'm going to drive into the table and drive into the 2 stormtroopers. Use the table as a what do you call it? A ram?
Battering ram.
Yeah.
Not a problem. Make me a melee roll. Difficulty 3.
Yeah. I'm trying. Whoa!
Okay, so feel free to narrate the successes. You've successfully rammed them into the wall with this battering ram table. So narrate how that goes down.
I see how they're going to it. The table just over. I ram into the table, keep going, knowing kind of where they're at, and I'll hit them. And because of how fast I was going, I didn't realize the distance between the table itself and where the wall is, and I'll just ram, and then you see me swirl, kind of like getting myself dizzy, and I have to catch myself. But they did hit them. I don't know what kind of damage you do, but it's going to be 2+. I guess it would be stunning damage because it's not anything lethal. And then hit them against the wall, and then of course my strength is only 1. So
okay, so I'm going to say that to the sort of the downside to this, the threat is that the 2 of them, although they are momentarily stunned and will miss their next go as they're sort of jammed against the wall, they've managed to keep hold of their weapons. You can still hear Rex sort of groaning feebly where he's stunned. However, as you're spinning around, you can see just to the right of where you're standing against the far wall, just to the right of where their weapons are on the wall, there's what appears to be a large metal, I suppose, set of drawers or a cabinet. You can see there's a large electronic lock on it, and stenciled on the front in basic is authorized personnel only. What do you do, T701? You appear to have located the storage locker where the effects are kept.
Gotcha.
However, these guys are slowly sort of trying their weapons, and they're slowly trying to push the table away from themselves so they can bring their weapons around you. You've basically got a round before they start sort of shooting at you. You're currently covered by the table. You'd have to move out of cover to get to the locker. You could potentially unlock it quickly enough with your various talents, but if you don't succeed, they would start shooting at you.
Yep. And since I have literally nerves of steel, literally, I'm going to go ahead and open up the lockers.
Okay, not a problem. It is a mechanics check, difficulty 2.
Okay.
However, one of those is red.
Okay. And then Alrighty, so it's not going to go open up. However, it is setting to go up.
I do have a suggestion for an advantage, which I'll float past you. What I was going to suggest is that as you're sort of wheeling across to have a look at this cabinet, and you're realizing you're not going to be able to prise it open dead quickly, and they're sort of pushing the table away from themselves. As you go past Rek, who's still sort of like lying on the floor, groaning where he's stunned, you can see around his neck on a chain is what appears to be like a key card.
Okay.
And he's just sort of lying there like.
Does it happen to be around like a metal chain of some sort?
Yeah, it's just a very thin, so almost like, you know, the chains that dog tags are on. It's one of those.
Okay, perfect. Then I will back up to it, and then through as part of the tool set, I'd say this little spinning, I don't know, probably about no bigger than an American quarter of a little saw to kind of start whirling and kind of cut the chain, and then gravity or the magnetic arm will snatch it.
Not a problem. You snatch this key card. You can see that the stormtroopers have now pushed the table away from themselves, and they're lifting their blaster rifles up, ready to fire at you. What do you do?
Because I have to do it, because you know R2 would do it. I'd ram the table again.
Okay. They are going to get a shot at you while you're doing this, but this will be effectively happening simultaneously. So make your melee roll.
So you can do it. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Get mine. And you said it was. You said 3 last time. So was it 2 now, or?
It's 2 now because the table's already up against them. Effectively, you've just got to push it.
All right. So let's do that. I am not meant for combat, but I'm trying. And yeah, so I kind of hit them, and it just kind of gets me more than it does them. Okay,
not a problem. They are going to take a shot at the 2 of them are going to take a shot at you.
And I'll say I have 2 advantages though.
You could use that to give them a setback dice.
A setback, correct? I would take both of them. That was the perfect timing for that one. So by doing that, it kind of like I hit it, and because of the setback, it kind of bounces me, so I'm not right there. They have to move up a little bit.
Okay, not a problem. Unfortunately for you, these people appear to be extremely well trained. They are the Emperor's finest, after all. You will be taking a mighty 9 damage minus whatever your armor is, as these 2 blaster bolts like poof, poof, thud into you as they push the table sort of to the side and start firing at you. You hear from the comm system to the left of them a voice say, "Weapons fire detected in cell block 3. Are you all right, men?" At which point, a couple of them sort of shout out, and you hear saying, "Roger, sending reinforcements." You're on mute, Gabe.
All right, so now I have to work quick. So using that, I'm gonna move by, and with the magnetic arm, reach up with the card and activate the lock of some sort.
The lock on the personal effects lock.
Personal effects.
You swipe the card, the door hisses open, and you can see all manner of equipment inside. Inigo, what sort of equipment would you have stashed in this locker? What was taken from you?
You see his padded armor and his dueling pistol and some stim packs. Other than that, you know that he was not very well prepared, and he liked to gamble a lot. So that was what you'd find in his personal items.
Okay, handily T7. There's like a separate shelf for each of the prisoners in there, and you can see Inigo's gear as described on one of these shelves. You can quickly grab that and secrete that inside yourself if you wish in your interior storage compartments.
All right, so I have limited room, so I have to make sure I get a gun, a weapon. Um, Trying to figure out what needs to be grabbed from here. So for Cade, it's going to definitely have to be a weapon that can kind of quickly grab.
You can see there
And
are a couple of like blaster pistols in there that obviously belong to other prisoners, as well as an Ego's kit.
yeah, um, let's see. I can picture myself grabbing basically quickly two weapons, two smaller blasters, and then I have to carry um, Cade's big gun, big thing that he has, and so that's going to take up my two internal, external arms to hold onto with dear life.
Okay, not a problem. You quickly grab all of this gear. However, whilst you're doing that, the stormtroopers are going to take another shot at you.
Okay. And
okay, luckily for you, they miss with their shots as they're still trying to clamber over this table. However, they appear to be slowly corralling you into a corner of the room, cutting down your maneuverability.
all right. My maneuverability is going to be trusted, and they're going to get closer and closer, and then I'm just going to kind of get into a corner and realize, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, and fire off.
Okay, well, while you're thinking about that, I'm going to jump to Cade
Okay.
briefly. Cade, you watch as the door towards the front of the ship hisses open, and you see two squadrons of stormtroopers moving at a very quick marching pace emerge from it, the door closing behind them, and they appear to be heading towards the cell blocks further towards the back of the ship.
Oh, okay. I'll make a note of it, and as they run past, I'll very kind of quietly into the communicator. T7, looks like you're about to get a little bit of company. Just be careful. Quickly get out of there, and get us our kit so we can get this guy out of here. I will try to, at this point, or at least attempt to get. I mean, I don't know if I want to try the panel again, especially if it's commotion. So I guess I'll just kind of hold off. I'll hold off and maybe just reassure Berek, like, all right, Berek, looks like it's going to happen soon, so you get your ass ready to move, buddy.
I'll try, but I don't know how quickly I can move. I've not eaten properly for days, and the things they've done to me.
I understand, but I tell you what, I don't know about you, but nothing feeds me more and fills my belly better than vengeance. Can your hand hold a blaster?
I'll try.
Good, because there's a chance that we're going to have to fight our way out of this. But you got this. I believe in you. And as soon as our droid comes by, I'll hand you a light blaster pistol, and then we're going to do this. But I need you to be ready. Because if not...
I'm ready.
Good, because if there's any hesitation, you're going to die, and you're going to stay here. I'm sure you don't want that.
No. I'll be ready.
Good. All right, T7. Get your metal backside moving.
Okay, Inigo, since you're on the cell block where all of these hijinks are taking place, and your cell sort of opposite where the quarters for the stormtroopers are, you can basically hear the sound of commotion and crashing coming from inside the stormtrooper quarters, followed by the unmistakable sound of like salvos of blaster fire and the whirring and familiar bleeping of T7 from inside the quarters. Occasionally there's a flash of light as blaster fire goes off.
He's debating on whether to try the panel again. His idea of trying to trick his way into the infirmary is going to happen, so he'll try the panel again.
Okay, it's a brawn roll, again, difficulty 2. You still have the bonus dice because Cade talked you through it all.
Okay, so difficulty 2, and here we go.
Okay, what I'm going to say is with that advantage, if you've not managed to get out yourself, but if you wish, you can give T7 a boost, since the commotion you're making might attract the attention of the stormtroopers and distract them from just like firing blaster upon blaster into T7.
I will do that. I will give him the advantage.
Okay, so T7, as you're sort of grabbing all this gear, you hear what sounds like clunking from the corridor outside. One of the off-duty stormtroopers appears through the door, and he goes, "Looks like we've got a full-blown prison break. We need to get out there." One of them goes, "What about the droid?" He's like, "Forget the droid." And they pretty much stop paying you any attention, T7, and start running out of the door. You can see them running towards your cell, Inigo.
Inigo will kind of stop once he's noticed, and he kind of waves, "Hi!"
The two stormtroopers who've come out, sort of, they're not in their armor, they're just wearing the black sort of body sleeves. They point their guns at you and they're like, "Step away from the door."
Inigo steps away and sits down on his bed or his bunk.
Okay. One of the stormtroopers keeps you covered with a blaster rifle. The other one deactivates the force field, moves in, and you see him looking at the panel where there's signs of you trying to like pry it loose. He says to his companion, "Wreck, it looks like the prisoner was trying to pry open the panel, probably hoping to get to the inner workings of the locking mechanism in some futile attempt to escape." The one who's pointing the gun at you says, "Well, it doesn't look like that plan's working out so well, does it?" And he gestures threateningly with the gun at you.
"No, sir."
Did you
Smiles.
really think you could escape from the pride of the Imperial fleet by prizing open a wall panel?
"I was told it could be done."
At which point his eyes narrow and he says, "Told? By who?"
Inigo kind of stops and thinks. A buddy of mine, and basically he's lying through his teeth, was captured years ago, and he escaped with nothing but a droid arm. And he's kind of lying. And they all know he's not trying to hide it. He's basically just lying, catches himself, tries another lie, catches himself.
Okay,
Just trying to
well,
distract them.
make me a deception roll. The difficulty is 3, so like you say, you're not really adept at it, but make the roll.
Deception. Okay, 3. Here we go.
Okay, they blatantly don't believe the line you're trying to sell them. However, their attention is fully focused on you at the minute, not T7. The one who's gesturing the rifle at you says, the one who's identified himself as Rek says, "Yeah, a likely story," and he sort of swings his rifle around to just show you the butt of it, and he goes, "Unless you want a taste of this again, you'll pipe down and be quiet." Doesn't look like he's got through the mechanism, Jones, as if someone could prise off one of these panels with their bare hands. At which point, Jones, who's been looking at the panel, says, "I think it's all secure enough. We'll get a technician to look at it first thing when we go on shift. He should be fine until now." And they both start sort of slowly like filing out of your cell, keeping an eye on you, the gun trained on you at all time. However, whilst that's going on, T7, you're effectively being ignored. It's just you and the knocked out stormtrooper is still up.
Yep, and as you're seeing it, the light on my head area kind of like goes out, as if you're looking at someone like closing his eyes, like, and then he's trembling, and then the commotion happens, and it's like stops, and the optical opens up halfway, and kind of like you can see it turn, like what? Opens up fully and follows them almost per step, using their step with my gyro noises, and definitely I'll use my gravity at this point to clamp down onto the barge itself, and then make my way to the closest panel, connect with it, and as they're talking, kind of whirl with it, and then basically it was going to be OT to open up. I don't have time to open up 1-3, but I have time to open them all up, because that's just easier.
Okay, not a problem. And it's at this point we're actually going to do the tide change of the game. Now, for those of you who don't know what a tide change is effectively I will ask each of the players to come up with a plot element. We will then have a short sort of 10-15 minute break. I'll post them in a poll on the Tides of Change Facebook group. People can vote on it, as can our players, and whichever gets the most number of votes, that will be the plot element that we will go with when we return to the game. So what I'm going to ask you guys to come up with is, in cell block 3, who is the highest profile or most notorious criminal in cell block 3 that T7 has now potentially released? And feel free to go as nuts as you want with this, guys. So if you need a bit of time to think about it, because I'm going to ask you in order, feel free to say come back to me. You don't have to give me all of their stats, just like a basic description of race, what they're in for, why they're notorious, etc. So I'm going to go to Inigo first. Inigo, who is the most high profile person on this cell block? Are you there, Inigo? Okay, we seem to have lost Inigo for the moment, so I will skip on to T7. T7, who is the most notorious prisoner on this block?
All right, just for a quick reference, what year is it?
It's 2 ABY.
1. Okay, so, and this is going to probably be kind of very interesting. This is probably the first time Tiber Zan has kind of up and coming and has been caught for the first time of the 3 times before making the consortium.
Okay, you will have to give me a bit of details on who Tiber Zan is.
Tiber Zan is basically, him and his brother were basically the founders of the Zan Consortium, which functions on a highly centralized or even openly public criminal underground thing, and they're both against the rebels and the Empire. They use everybody to their advantage, and anybody who's willing to meet with them or kind of join with them becomes part of the consortium and actually helps them in their terrorizing of governments and organizations of different sorts. The Republic is not huge on their list, but the Empire definitely is. Black Sun and different other organizations that are it's basically a huge criminal underground.
Okay, that's great. So now, Cade, who are you suggesting is the highest profile criminal on this block?
The individual is the extremely notorious and incorrigible, the butcher of Commonor, known the Togruta, known as the Walking Hunger, who, in his own insanity, has decided to try and sample at least one of every race in the galaxy, and will not stop until he's tried to consume everything. Although one of his favorite dishes is Stormtrooper. He despises the Empire and all of its everything to do with it, and has decided to just go. Now, being free, he realizes now that whatever medical or psychological problem he has decided now that his hunger needs to be filled, and he is going to go out and start trying to consume all the individuals.
Okay, not a problem. That's great. Okay, we seem to have lost Inigo for the minute, so I'm going to go with the 2 suggestions that you guys have suggested. So we'll have a short sort of 10-minute break, people to go and grab a drink, etc. I will get this posted on the Tides of Change, and then we will come back and pick up in 10 minutes. Okay, that has been posted up on the Tides of Change group for people to vote on. And like I say, we'll give people 10 minutes to vote, and then we will come back to the game. Inigo has just suffered a power failure, so he's rebooting, so hopefully he'll be with us shortly. So I'm going to go and grab a drink, breath of air, etc., and we will see you all in 10 minutes, where we will find out who this notorious prisoner is that has been released and how this mission is going to unfold. Okay, and for those of us who have stuck with us, in case you've just tuned in, we're just having a 10-minute break, giving people time to vote on the tide change. We've got about 5 minutes left to go, and if you're not aware, a tide change is when I ask the players to come up with a plot twist. In this case, I asked them to come up with the identity of a notorious criminal in this cell block who had been freed by T7 accessing the equipment. What I've then done is I've posted the two options. The two options suggested were Tiber Zan, the human finder of the Zan Consortium, and the Tragruta Cannibal and Gourmand Extreme, known as the Walking Hunger. Both these have been posted as a poll on the Tides of Change Facebook group. So if you want to have an impact on this story, go there, vote on it. Whichever one gets the most votes will be used when we come back after the break. In the event of both of them getting the same amount of votes, both options will come into play. They'll be combined, as it were. And this is just a way that the Tides of Change community uses to give the viewers a chance to have an impact on the story, but in a way that's been suggested by the players. So it's not just a case of the people voting are going to derail the story anyway, because all of these suggestions have been made by the players. It's also a great way to keep the game interesting for the GMs, since it adds a plot twist that as a GM you can't possibly have planned for all the contingencies. So it keeps it interesting, keeps the GM thinking on their feet, and also gets both the players and the viewers and the members of the Tides of Change community, which is a great community. I highly recommend checking it out, involved in the story and being able to have an impact on the plot. So we've got a couple of minutes remaining on our break, so I'm just going to wait till the players come back and are with us, and once we've got everyone assembled again, we will crack on with the plot. Thank you very much for those who are watching and to the people who have voted in the poll. Okay, so we're just going to wait for the three players to log back in after they've grabbed a drink or whatever, and then we are going to press forward with the game. Let's see who we've got currently leading the poll. It was looking like Ty Bazan that last time I checked. Okay, splendid. We are on 5 votes apiece. That works as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so just give me a few moments and then we shall get cracking with this.
And by the way, my dog does not know how to play fetch, but the cat loves playing fetch and will bring it right back to me to throw it again.
It's always the ones you least expect, man. Okay, so if everyone's ready to and good to go, we shall crack back on with the story. I'll just post that the voting is now closed. Okay. Okay, so T7, you interface with the machinery. In Ego, you watch as all of the force fields on cell block 3 wink out of existence. Literally just as the stormtroopers are sort of trying to re-enable your force field and turn it back on again. And they're like, the one identified as Wreck is like pressing the button and he's like, what the, must be some kind of mechanical malfunction. Then you literally see what appears to be a red-coloured, slightly scaly-looking hand from the cell next to yours just like come over his shoulder and pull him into the cell next to yours, and you hear gurgled screaming the crunching of bone from inside the cell next to yours. The screaming rises in pitch and is cut off by a sort of gurgling, wet, slopping sound, and something that sounds horribly like chewing. Immediately, the other force fields wink off, and various sort of prisoners, slightly bewildered, start sort of staggering out of their cells, not really sure what's going on. The other stormtrooper who's in front of your cell, and he immediately like runs towards the cell next to him, and you hear him like, you see him hold his blaster up. You can't see what's in the cell, but you can hear him say, "Step back! Step back!"
At that time, can I move towards him and kind of place that bowl of gruel kind of right in his face as he's facing whatever enemy he's facing? Try to blind him.
Are you just like slamming it in his face?
Yeah, from behind.
Yeah, not a problem. Make me a brawl roll, difficulty 2. I will give you a bonus dice since he's very much not expecting that or concentrating on you at the moment.
Okay.
You push the bowl into his face, but it's only like half turned towards you. He is a little distracted, so you would get a bonus dice from it, but he's not like fully blinded. He's sort of like brought his hand up. However, he's not pointing his gun anymore. He's sort of gone, "Ugh," as this slop's just like spilled over his face. As you look beyond him, though, Inigo, you see this huge, muscled Togruta, the horns and the sort of tentacles common of their kind. He's dark red coloured in his skin. You can see he's bent over this, what looks to be disemboweled stormtrooper. It's still sort of twitching spasmodically and gurgling. You watch as the Togruta sort of brings a hand covered in blood and gore up to his face and goes, and then in a very low voice he says, "Oh, I see seconds have arrived." And he sort of laughs and starts bounding towards the other stormtrooper. If you have any sort of underworld knowledge or anything along that line, you can make me a roll if you wish, Inigo.
Okay, I will make that roll. Any difficulty or just straight?
It's difficulty 1 because this person is notorious. Okay, not a problem. This person is something of an urban legend, especially on the outer rims. No one knows his real name. You know, he's the Togruta, who's known only as the Walking Hunger. You've heard rumours that he's devoured numerous sentients throughout this sector and beyond. He has some sort of weird religious belief where he believes that he gains like power and strength from those he devours. And from what you've heard, it took like an inordinate amount of Imperial troopers to finally bring him down. They had to like pump him full of stun grenades and blaster bolts till he finally collapsed, and then they've kept him pretty much sedated until they locked him in here. You can see that the security on his cell now, looking on it, is actually a lot more than yours, but whatever's disabled the force fields also disabled his. You watch as he barrels into the second stormtrooper, and this guy's like pretty much defenseless. He's still trying to wipe the gruel off the side of his face. He doesn't even have his armor on. He's just got the tight fitting like black body stocking. And you watch as this Togruta grabs hold of one of his arms and wrenches it and twists it, and there's a sickening as you hear the popping sound of this stormtrooper's shoulder being dislocated, and he's dragged into the cell. You can see that as the Togruta pulls him in, he's literally gnashing his teeth. And you can see they appear to have been sharpened and filed into sharp points.
Please enjoy your breakfast, my friend. I will see if there are more to come. Is the blaster there? Did he drop it, or did he carry it in with the cell with him?
The two blaster rifles are just lying on the floor where the hapless troopers dropped them as they were being eaten alive.
I'll grab those. I'll look over at T7.
Okay.
Shall we go get our friend? And he makes sure that he's no longer in view of the creature inside munching on the stormtrooper.
Okay, not a problem. T7, as you're hearing that, as you sort of come out with all of this gear that you've accumulated, and you can see through the door this second stormtrooper just being like rendered bodily apart and devoured by this monstrous Togruta, this huge muscled thing. It almost doesn't seem like sentient. It's just like a beast, an animal. As you watch, you see a human with long grey hair and a grizzled face steps out of one of the cells. He's sort of dusting himself down almost unconcernedly as he sort of looks around and steps out of the cell. And he gestures to some of the other prisoners and he says, "You men there, see what weapons you can secure." And he says it in a very commanding voice. They sort of look at each other as though they're going to start saying, "Oh, well, why should we follow orders from you?" And he's like, "Listen, if we want to get out of here, our only hope is to take this ship. You really think we'll get far once the Empire finds out what's happened here? I don't intend on being their prisoners any more than you should be. Our only hope is to make it to the command deck and take control of the ship. From there, we can go wherever we want. I have allies who will see us safely away from here. Are you with me, or do you wish to spend the rest of your life in prison? And then dead?" At which point the prisoners are like, "Oh, shit, yeah, he's got a good point in it," but just the sheer force of his will seems to like cow them into submission. He doesn't really seem to regard you, T7, because it's just a droid like knocking about.
Inigo at that time will say, "Here you go, sir," and toss him one of the blasters. Tally ho! And he'll start going towards the maximum security, just trying to avoid people from getting too close to him.
Okay, not a problem. So you're throwing a blaster to Ty Bazan for it, is he?
Yep.
And then
I'm trying to win his. Yeah, I'm trying to win his favor. Here's your blaster.
Okay, not a problem. Make me a charm roll. The difficulty is 2, and I will give you a bonus die since you have just like gone, "Here's a weapon for yourself, sir."
Difficulty 2.
Yeah, and you get a blue boost dice.
Sounds great. And we'll roll.
Okay, he sort of catches, almost lazily raises his hand and just like catches the blaster out of the air. You see him like checking the clip in it, for want of a better term. The other prisoners are sort of slowly falling into line behind him. He looks over at you, nods without saying a word, and then says, "We need to work out a way to bring the rest of the force fields down. The only way we're going to take this ship is if we have more men than they have. And at the minute, we don't. We don't stand a chance once they get reinforcements down here. We need to find some way of securing that door and freeing the other prisoners." Is that something? What is your field of expertise? He says to you, Inigo.
I can fly anything that's got wings. That's about it, sir.
Good. We'll have need of a pilot once we take this ship. And he looks down at T7 and says, "Is this your droid?"
Yes, it is, sir. And I tap him.
And once I do that, I'll drop his weapon, and then I'll kind of bleep to him and says, "Come with me. Hang on to number 1."
He smiles. Sir, the weapons locker is that way. I believe it's already open. I'll see if I can get these other doors open. Come, my friend. And I tap the droid on his chrome top, and we make our way forward.
And I'll make a snide comment on the one who's lost his hydraulic fluid and is losing it rapidly. And
as you're saying this, you hear from behind you this like, and this huge red Togruta, sort of covered in blood and other arterial spray, steps out of this cell. He almost has to like duck and like peel his way out of the cell. He's a huge beast of a creature, and you see him step out, and he looks around, sort of like licking his lips and his sharpened teeth. At which point the white-haired gentleman like walks up to him, like looks up at him, and without showing any sign of fear, like jabs a finger into his chest, and he says, "You there? I know who you are. Do you know who I am?" At which point the Togruta goes, "Yes, I know who you are." He says, "And do you want to be a prisoner? They've taken you captive once before. They can do so again. They can flood this compartment with gas, knock us all out, and have us back in chains without any trouble. Is that what you want?" He's like, "No, of course it isn't. I want to eat." Which one he says, "And you will get plenty of chance to do that, but you're only going to eat who I say you're going to eat. Then we'll take this ship and we'll be away from these Imperial dogs." At which point the Togruta nods and sort of heads off with this white-haired guy. But at that point, Inigo and T7, you've sort of disappeared into the next cell block. However, as the door hisses open, you can see there's 2 squadrons of stormtroopers behind it, just getting ready to come through. As the door starts opening and you see them through the door, you hear the white-haired Tiber Zan shout to you, T7. He says, "Droid, get that door sealed." You're muted, Gabe.
Man, I messed that up. Well, that's number 2. And I was like, beep, 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 beep. And if he understands me, it was basically, "Who do you think you are ordering me around? I only let 2 people order me around, Inigo and Kate, and you're not one of them."
As you say that, he sort of cuts you off and in a cold voice says, "I am Tiber Zan of the Zan Consortium. And if you know of me, you'll know I'm not a man to be trifled with. Now do as I say."
Beep, beep, beep.
Inigo will tap him on the head. Yes, we'll do it. And he's kind of pushing him towards a panel.
Yep. And then I'll go ahead and close it because I thought we were trying to get in. So it'll spin backwards and kind of do the double, and then close it up.
Okay.
Inigo will follow him and whisper to Cade, "We're kind of stuck for a while. I hope he just open the doors for you."
Okay, Cade, where you are, there's been no effect on the force field whatsoever.
Well, looks like we're going to be stuck here for a little bit. Damn it, that's it. I got to find some way out of here. How are we doing on those? How are we doing on those guns, T7?
Beep, 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 beep. Basically, I have them. Don't give up. I'll open your door, but you'll be on the other side.
Okay, well, fine. I'll try and do it from my end. I'm going to try and, if possible, try and crack open that panel again. Try and bust this force field.
Not a problem. It's since you've now sort of priced it off a good deal, I would say that if you wish, you can use computers or mechanics. The difficulty will be 2 now, since you have been sort of steadily working at it.
Okay. And sorry, guys, I'm totally gonna flip. I'm gonna flip a die because I need it. Flip a destiny point, I mean. So we'll do that and that. Add one of these. Oh, come on!
Okay, you try as you might, you try and prise this panel open, but it stubbornly resists your best efforts to break into it.
And although it will do nothing, I will probably kick it and swear at it, and look for another way or another thing that I can do, like any other thing that I can
At
do.
this point, as you're kicking it, I'm going to say you can make me a brawn roll. It's difficulty 4 because it's not very likely you're just going to kick it off the wall. But
Sure, why not? It's going to be so ridiculous. So I can just imagine that, like, I just kick it and I end up like kind of hurting my like foot, like God. But I guess with that one advantage, it seems to have actually have jarred it just a little bit, maybe even like popped a weakness in the welding a bit.
Okay, yeah. I will say that if you try again in a short while, you will get a boost dice since you have sort of staved in the front of it, so you can now actually get to the mechanism at least. Okay, I'm going to jump back to Inigo and T7. You're in front of this door which you've locked. You can just about hear the sound of some sort of heavy equipment being dragged into place behind it. Perhaps the stormtroopers are planning to cut through it, or something similar. Tiber Zan appears to be organising the other prisoners. Then he walks over to where you are, T7, sort of kneels down, so he's like on eye level with your optical sensors, and in a slightly more subdued voice says, "Can you open the other cell doors from here?" You appear to be on mute, my friend.
Dang it! I pushed it. And it double push. So I'm going to be like, beep, 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 beep. Of course I can. In fact, I'm in the middle of doing it right now. I have 2 friends on the other side.
Okay, make me a mechanics check. It is difficulty 3, and one of those is going to be red.
Okay. And so it's going to be 2, 1. So, yeah, here we go.
Okay, not a problem. You effectively just sort of overload the door system, and where you're sat, Cade, there's a sort of hiss and a sparking and a smell of burnt rubber, and the force fields on the cells in the block that you're in flicker and dissipate.
Alrighty. And I'll be like, almost got it. Almost, and almost. Okay, maybe, almost got it. And then that's when it happens.
I would kind of look at the busted panel at my foot. I knew I had this. And I'll probably kind of quickly look down the corridor either side, and then try and just sneak out over to Berek.
Okay, you head in again. You see this emaciated guy who's sort of like leaning on the wall for support. He looks like he's barely got enough strength to stand up. He looks very frail and weakened. But you can see for the first time since you've heard, as he sort of sees you and he says, "Oh, I can't believe it. You've done it." And for the first time in speaking to him, you hear the faint sort of spark of hope start to be fanned in his voice as he starts to believe that maybe somehow, impossibly, you can get him off this hellish spaceship and out of this nightmare that he's been in.
And I kind of reach my hand down and kind of grab his arm, lift it up, and kind of like just kind of drape him kind of over my shoulder. All right, I'm gonna get you out of here. My friends and I.
He nods. He nods. He's leaning on you, but like I say, he's so emaciated that he weighs virtually nothing. It's like you're carrying a bag of sticks rather than a person.
Do you want to be free?
He nods and says, "More than anything."
Then you're gonna have to help. Come on. And I start walking.
I'll do what I can, but I'm so weak.
I know. Is there any kind of like any type of like rations kicking around or some food or something I can just kind of like shove into his gullet, maybe kind of give him a little bit of a energy boost?
You can see there's like an untouched bowl of gruel on the floor of his cell, presumably put in there whilst he was being tortured, but he's obviously not had the strength to drag himself over to it and not force any of the slop down his throat.
Well, I'll look down, pick up the gruel, kind of tilt his head back. Here, just get some in you. Quick, hurry up. Let's go. Eat fast.
He slurps it hungrily down himself with a sort of slobbering, wet, smacking sound, as though he was a man eagerly devouring the finest of foods that the core worlds have to provide, and not the sloppy, congealed gruel that he's slobbering down. As loads of it spills down his front and into his beard. It's a fairly unpleasant experience, but he gets most of it down himself.
All right, come on. Break time's over. Now comes the real fun. And I'll start walking, kind of like just kind of silently, very stealthily moving towards the door.
So you're heading towards the rear of the ship, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, at least to join up, to link up with Inigo and T7.
Okay, can you make me a stealth roll? The difficulty is only 2, since there's a lot of chaos going on and other prisoners are emerging out of their cells, but you will get a setback dice since you're obviously carrying Berek.
Okie dokie. Let me just make sure that this dice pool is accurate. Okay, cool. There we go. So okay. 3 successes, 2 threats.
So you are successful. So I'm going to say you make your way through, pushing past prisoners. You can see as you head out, the scene is one of absolute chaos. There are stormtroopers fighting hand-to-hand against some of the prisoners. The whole area, the whole block is full of this chaos of prisoners like attacking stormtroopers with like their dinner trays and sort of pulling bits of cabling off the walls, hitting them with like their boots, whatever they've got to hand. These stormtroopers are fairly well practiced and they're sort of shooting them down, but for every stormtrooper there's about 4 prisoners and they're slowly like bearing them down with weight of numbers. You have to like force your way through this crowd. However, with your successful stealth roll you make it through sort of unmolested by the stormtroopers. However, with the 2 threat, as you get to the sort of like the door that separates you from Inigo and T7, you can see in front of you, although they don't appear to have noticed you yet, 2 squads of stormtroopers. They have a technician with them who's holding like an arc welder, and he's slowly using it to cut open the door in front of them. Guys on the other side, T7 and Inigo, you can see this like flash slowly moving up the seam of the door.
Is there, now on our way down to this door, are there any open cells that have no one in them?
Yeah, pretty much all of the prisoners have vacated their cells. The corridors of the ship echo with jubilant shouts, the screams of people being shot, the fizzing and popping of blaster fire. It's a scene of absolute chaos around you as a sea of people basically riot in these corridors of this ship. The sound is so loud and so thunderous that it almost drowns out the ever-whirring klaxon.
I'll grab Berek and I'll just kind of gently put him into the cell nearest to the stormtroopers without them like clearly noticing.
Okay. Make
and then
stealth roll. It's difficulty 2. Again, you still have a setback dice because obviously you're manhandling Berek into a cell.
No problem. Oh, both 2. Yeah. Okay. Oh boy. Okay.
Okay. You've just thrown Berek into this cell when one of the stormtroopers turns around, clearly sees you, and says, "Hey!" And him and his squad run towards you, while the other squad and the technician remain cutting through the doors. Okay. They raise their blaster rifles at you, and at this point, I'm going to ask you to make me an initiative roll, please. Just to basically see if you go before them. Since you're prepared, it will be a cool roll. There's no difficulty, it's just a straight roll.
Oh, just double check. Okay. That and that and that.
Okay, not a problem. They're quite surprised to see you, and as they're lifting their guns, you get to take an action.
Okay. So the first thing I do, actually, is I manage to, like, I just kind of I raise my hands and just kind of put them behind the back of my head, and I say, "Wait, wait! I'm not trying to escape. They need your help back there. Look, I know I'm already screwed. I know I'm going to jail. There's no sense in fighting it. I can't get off this ship. I don't know how to pilot nothing. So listen, I'm just telling you, they're getting overrun. You guys might need to help them out before these psychos start taking over the bloody ship."
Okay, make me a subterfuge roll. So that will be coercion you can use. The difficulty is 3. However, if you wish, you can give yourself a boost due to the advantage you got previously.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. I need all the help I can get. Okay, yeah.
Destiny die.
No, it's too late.
Okay.
It's fine.
They pretty much surround you, and they're like, one of them goes, "Cuff him," and they're like, "Get down on the ground! Get down on the ground!"
And I do. I just get straight down on the ground, hands above my head. Also, I'm looking to see if hopefully I've managed to pull enough stormtroopers off of that door that they could definitely it could help the situation.
Okay, as you're doing so, like I said, there's one squad with you, one squad at the door with the technician, although he has slowed down his cutting progress as he's like, "What the hell's going on here?" and like looking behind you, and the stormtrooper's like, "Keep cutting." However, as the stormtrooper's moving in with like his magna cuffs to like slap the cuffs on you, there's suddenly a loud dung as from the cell next to him, a sort of metal dinner plate, like a gruel bowl, is flung into his head from the cell where you placed Berek, and it sort of clangs off the side of his helmet, not causing him any real damage, but for a moment he takes his eyes off you and turns around to look at who threw this bowl at him.
All right, I might use that. Boy, this is so risky. Man, this is like, it's like gambling. And I'm gonna take that gamble. I'm gonna see if I can get up, grab the stormtrooper, grab his blaster, and just kind of use him as a shield in front of the other stormtroopers. And yeah.
Okay, not a problem. Since that's effectively a grapple roll, I will say it's a brawl test. The difficulty is 2, and I will give you a boost die since obviously this guy is slightly distracted.
Okay.
Not a problem. The instant he looks around, you pretty much like reach around his waist, grab his blaster, stick it at the side of his head, and sort of grab him round the throat with your other arm. The 3 stormtroopers who are with him are sort of pointing their guns, but they're like, obviously can't get a direct bead on you because you're behind him, and they're like, "Back away from him! Get back down on the floor! Back away, or we will open fire!"
So I just drop your weapons, or I'm going to shoot him. I will kill him.
Okay, so I'm going to say that's a negotiation roll, although you can use coercion if you wish. I'm going to say the difficulty is only 2, since you are there and you do have a gun on him and you are a known criminal.
Okay, so it's 2 and 2. Interesting.
Okay, I'm going to say with that success, they don't drop their weapons, but they do sort of lower them a bit, sort of uncertainly. However, with the threat, the other squadron of stormtroopers who were at the door see what was going on and sort of run up to reinforce the stormtroopers pointing their weapons at you. The cutting tool clatters to the floor as the technician's like, "Forget this. If there's a firefight breaking out, I'm making myself scarce." And he just pretty much dives into a cell on the other side of the corridor, like dropping the cutting gear. T7 and an Eagle on the other side. You see the light that's been moving up the door sort of like flicker and disappear. You hear the sound of like doo, 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 as this cutting tool's dropped on the metal floor on the other side of the door. You see that Ty Bazana's basically gathered up the prisoners and he's stormed towards the back of the ship away from where you guys are.
All right, and I'll go. Beep, beep, he's like I was expecting him to still be there, but he's gone. And I'll look at Indigo. Inigo, and like, ready? 3,
Inigo
2,
is also looking back there. He was thinking that something else was happening. Sure, buddy.
1, and doors open.
He starts blasting.
Not a problem. You guys don't have to make a roll for this. And T7 and Ego, you will be going first. T7's action is obviously to open the door. The door hisses open. You see, as you look through Inigo and T7, the discarded cutting gear on the floor. You can see 2 squadrons of 4 stormtroopers, one of whom is being held hostage by your friend Cade, who's pointing a blaster rifle at his head and sort of holding him around the neck, sort of saying, "Put your weapons down." The other stormtroopers are pointing their guns, sort of unsurely, sort of trying to look round and see if they can take a shot, but at the minute they don't appear to be actually able to take a shot on him without hitting their associate.
After seeing that, is there a chance of coming behind the guy in the back of, I guess he'd be the first guy from us, but the guy in the back, if I could approach and do the same thing that Cade's doing, but the guy in the back, and I'll yell out, if I succeed, I'll yell out, "Put your guns down, or he's dead!"
Okay, not a problem. Again, this will be a brawl roll, difficulty 2, and again you will get a boost dice, since as far as I'm concerned that door was locked shut, no one was coming through it.
Okay, Braun.
Let's say a brawl roll, yeah.
Okay, here we go. Difficulty 2.
Okay. Unfortunately for you, the guy at the back was keeping half an eye on the door as he heard the sound of the cutting gear being dropped. He immediately turns around and snaps off a shot at you with his blaster rifle. The sort of squad he's in, just all sort of hearing him fire, turn around and sort of shoot at you. So effectively half the stormtroopers are firing in your direction. Obviously, I'm just going to make a single roll for them. So here we go. Okay. You have most definitely been hit. You take 11 points of damage minus whatever your soak is. As these blaster bot, you come round and you sort of like reaching forward to try and grab his gun. They turn around and like blaster fire just like thuds into your chest.
And that was 11. Okay. 4, so 7 was taken. Ouch.
How many wounds do you have remaining?
I have 5 left.
Okay, so from where you are, Cade, and you see in T7, you see this happen as sort of Inigo's like as these blaster bolts hit him in the chest. You can see he's looking, let's put it diplomatically, he's looking decidedly unwell, it's safe to say. And you see the stormtroopers are like, half of them are sort of moving towards him while the original squad are still sort of keeping their guns trained as best as they can on you, Cade. Okay, so T7, what are you doing?
All right, I'm going to use my maneuver to make my way into the next room and stand right in front of, well, I would say stand right behind one of the stormtroopers that's right on engaged with Cade, if there is one. If there isn't, then I'll just go with stand next to Berek and tell him, hang on, you're going to want to hold on to me, hang on. And so
Barry looks at you and he's like, I'm sorry, he seems to understand you, but he's like, what do you mean hang on to you?
Hang on to me, and I'll look at him, hang on
he just sort of throws himself and clutches onto you.
And then, so I'm waiting for Cade to do it, and then once I do that, I'll just kind of lean back on my one-wheel turn as much as I can, and kind of go like, not so tight.
Okay. T7 comes wheeling out, so he's next to you, Cade, with like Berek like clutching onto him like a drowning man clutching a piece of driftwood. And as he comes out, you hear him say, hang on to me.
And then, so my action at this point would actually, just because of the way I'm turning, I'm actually going to go ahead and help Cade out with this little situation he might be having, and I'm going to go ahead and just try to open up my chest field, let the little electricity build up to a little boulder size electrical arc and then shoot it.
Not a problem.
Because
You're just aiming at
why
one of
not?
the stormtroopers.
Yeah, one of the ones that right up on him that's giving him a little trouble, and it's more just to give him help, if anything.
Not a problem. Make your attack roll.
And it's the 2 difficulty.
Yep. Just to remind you at the minute as well, T7. Obviously, you can trigger the explosive whenever you so wish.
All right. Yeah, I am. I just want to make sure a couple things happen.
No problems.
I'm going to miss. However, the little fill that it does happens to get the one that is, I guess, would be engaged with Cade, and he will be disoriented.
Okay, you see this flash of electricity from the small astromech, Cade, and one of the stormtroopers sort of staggers back, dropping to one knee. His blaster rifle clatters to the floor as he's like raising a hand to his head.
And the other advantage will give Cade the boost die.
Okay, Cade, what are you doing? You still got this guy with like the blaster rifle held to his head.
Boy. So I got the blaster rifle. I will just grab. I'll just kind of like point. Like, actually, no. I got a better idea. So behind us is the prisoners are all like rioting and kind of doing what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of shout, if it's possible. I'll shout behind me if I can. Or those Imperial scums over here! Come on, boys, let's get them!
Okay, that's absolutely great. Can you please make me I would say charm, although you could argue for coercion if you wish. It's only difficulty 2, since they're quite happy to riot at the minute. The corridor is full of the sounds of people like smacking Imperials upside the head with whatever's to hand, and the sound of blaster fire as these panicked Imperials are like firing into the prisoners.
You know, I'm gonna flip a destiny because I really need this. Oh, I'll take that. I'll take all that.
Okay, the corridor is filled with these maximum security prisoners who pretty much rush forward, like swinging their chains and smashing them into the Imperials. The stormtrooper, the 2 squads of stormtroopers are pretty much carried away a bit from you. They're engaged with trying to fight off these prisoners. You're no longer the main target. In fact, Inigo is just sort of like struggling to stay on your feet, and you see they're raising the blasters. This wave of prisoners just sort of overwhelm the stormtroopers who've been aiming their guns at you, and they're sort of knocked to the ground by just the sheer weight of people like pummeling them with their fists and kicking at them and jumping on them and trying to rip bits of their armor off.
So now that they're pretty much engaged, the stormtrooper I pretty much have, like, I guess the gun right to. I'm just going to shoot him in the noggin.
Not a problem. You don't have to make any roll for that. There's a poof. His head snaps to one side and he goes limp, a dead weight in your arms.
And then I drop him, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this as a free action, but I'm going to pass the blaster rifle to Berek, and I say, all right, Berek, let's fight for your freedom. Let's go.
As the rifle's passed over to Berek, T7 Berek's obviously been sort of hanging on to you. He appears to be like a little bit delirious, as though his like strength's failing him. And as he's sort of holding on to you, he's almost gibbering, and he's like, oh, Faldor, I never thought I'd see you again. I thought once he'd stole you, I thought that was it. I thought for sure he'd have wiped your memory by now. How did you escape, my little friend?
Beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, not yet. Don't talk. You talk too much. Hold on. Let's go. And then Cade, hold on.
He holds on to you, but he sort of like grabs this rifle that Cade's offered him and sort of tucks it under his arm, holding on to you with his other hand. Cade, T7 shouts for you to hold on. Obviously, you hear this as well, Inigo.
Just give him my damn rifle.
Okay, he says, just give him a damn rifle to you, T7.
Oh, it's basically on the ground if he wants it. It's just right, it's kind of being dragged behind me.
So I grab my heavy blaster rifle, check the sights, All right, we got to make our way real quick. Inigo, how you doing? You holding up all right? I saw you get hit.
You see Inigo, he's kind of looking at the wound in his chest. Cade, we saved you. Let us go to the hangar. And he's just still looking at the hole in his chest. Oh,
All
that
right.
hurt.
Yeah, hang on a sec. And I'll just grab. I had one stim pack off of T7, and as I start rushing by Inigo, I take the stim pack and kind of slam it into his gut. Let's go, Inigo. You can hear.
As he slaps this stim pack into you, this flood of rejuvenating chemicals. Think about it as like sort of like if someone had taken like Red Bull and concentrated it down into like the pure essence of wakefulness, just courses through your system. You regain 5 wounds, and you gain this temporary like boost of vitality as you feel energy surge back into you.
You see Inigo, he just smiles and he kind of laughs. Let's go to the hangar. Let's steal a TIE fighter. Or whatever ship we can get out of here on. Let's go! And he kind of skips like a happy puppy towards the back.
Listen, we'll make our way down, but I have an idea before we get out. So let's just hurry down, and I'll tell you guys on the way.
Okay, you make your way to the door that leads into the next cell block. As it hisses open, since T7's pretty much got these doors worked out by now, the door hisses open, and you see this huge, hulking red Togruta almost filling the door frame, standing there. He's holding what appears to be the leg of a stormtrooper, still wearing its armor in one hand. There's a bit of fluid spurting out of one end of it, and he chews absent-mindedly on it. As the door opens and he sees the 3 of you, he doesn't appear to pay attention to T7, but he looks at the 2 of you and he's like,
Inigo will say, my friend, did you enjoy your breakfast? There are a few more bodies that way if you wish to eat more. As he kind of skirts around him, if he can.
Okay, make me a brawl roll. The difficulty will be 4.
Here we go. Oh.
Okay. As you go to move round, and his hand like slams into the wall, blocking your passage past him, and he leans down, his sort of horned face and his mad staring eyes and sharp teeth looking at you, and he's like, dead bodies aren't any good. I like my meat fresh.
Hey, big man. You know what tastes real good? Those that wield the Force and stormtroopers.
He looks over at you, and when you say stormtroopers, he is like, and a thin trail of spittle dribbles down his face.
That's right. Back there, it's like an all-you-could-eat Imperial buffet. Plus, there's one. She's got yellow skin, yellow eyes, but she uses the Force. Magic in her blood. Imagine how good that would taste. You get back there.
At this point, to make me a charm roll, the difficulty is only 2. Since you're effectively telling him what he wants to hear.
Oh, this is gonna maybe not work out. Oh, oh God, it worked.
Okay, you say that, and he nods. Then he stops for a moment, and he extends his like taloned hand and points at the door, sort of towards the front of the ship, which you know leads to like the bridge and the sort of front area of the ship, and he goes, "What's through there?"
Stormtrooper meat, Imperials, and that Force-using person I told you about.
He covers the distance to the door in like a couple of quick bounds, moving surprisingly quickly for someone of his size. He gets to the door and he sort of like bangs on it with a fist, and the door obviously doesn't open, and he looks confused, and he's like, ugh, bangs a few more times on it, but the blast door stubbornly remains shut.
Very quickly, I'll say, T7, maybe you should close and lock the door now, so we can make our way to the TIE Fighter hangar.
Beep, 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 beep. Only if you hang on to me on the way.
You hear him shout, "Open this door!" and he's like hammering on the door to like the cockpit area, the sort of command deck of the ship.
Maybe we should feed him.
You volunteering an ego?
No, but he wants to go the way we came, doesn't he? I'd let him go.
No, let him work on this. It's going to take him a little bit for the brain to register. He can't get through that door. In the meantime, TIE fighters, let's go right now. Come on. Berek, Berek, you holding up, buddy?
He's like, oh, I'm fine. He sort of looks down at T7 and he's like, I'm holding on to Faldor here. He seems a bit delirious and his voice is a bit slurred.
Oh, man. Great. Well, Faldor, let's go. Come on, buddy.
Beep, 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 beep. Final warning in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, you trigger the explosive. Allow ripples throughout the ship, and you actually feel a vibration run through the ship. And as it ripples outwards from the gravity well generator, the gravity in the ship suddenly winks off. Linked to the rest of the electrical systems, most of the doors on the ship fly open as you all sort of start like floating upwards in the lack of gravity. You hear a triumphant cry from behind you as the door to the command bridge hisses open, and the last thing you see of the huge Togruta known as the Butcher of Commonor or the Walking Hunger is you see his feet disappearing as he pulls himself through into the command deck. A few seconds later there was the sound of blaster fire and screaming from the command deck.
Well, I'm going to be real happy to get off this ship. All right. And I wasn't holding on to T7 just because, you know, I just didn't understand what the heck he was saying. So, you know, kind of pushing off the ceiling and kind of grappling onto any sort of like, you know, angular bits of metal or tubing or anything like that. I'll kind of pull myself along into the engineering, to the TIE fighter hangar.
Okay, not a problem. Can you all make me stealth rolls? Difficulty is only 2. Just see if you get there without attracting any attention. Okay. So you start making your way through all of the doors, which are now open thanks to T7 setting off the explosive. You sort of pull yourself using whatever handholds you can, and you make it into this hangar bay. You can see there are 3 TIE fighters currently in here. Presumably the rest might be out on patrol or something similar. And there is a single Lambda-class shuttle sat in the center of the docking bay. Just to see if you can like force your way through the crowds to finally sort of get to this shuttle. Can you all please make me a discipline roll? The difficulty is 3.
Okay, so what does that discipline roll cover? Because
it involves you basically like making your way via the most sensible route through the crowd and like picking your route wisely.
Okay.
Okay, so we just need T7's roll.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to use the last one, guys. You'll understand why in a second. Hopefully I understand it in a little second. Well, it wasn't a failure.
Not a problem. You guys it takes you a little bit of time, but you guys eventually make your way onto this sort of launch pad area. You can see the normal sort of force fields activated that keep the atmosphere in but allow ships to move through them and out of the docking bay, etc. Obviously they're on a separate circuit since you don't want them winking out if there's a normal sort of power outage. So you move in. Are you making your way towards the shuttle or?
Oh yeah, and for me it would be kind of like post haste. So even though at a double movement with the weight on me, I would still be moving um, half because of the weight. So it would be double movement would be one full movement for me.
Okay, not a problem. Now, as you head in Inigo, I'm just going to ask you, out of all the people in the galaxy, who is the person you trust the most? You're on mute.
Person I trust the most is the father figure of the pilot who taught me how to fly. He was my idol. They thought he was crazy and reckless, and basically probably almost died 10 or 12 times, but always came back from his stunts.
Okay, not a problem. As you move into the hangar bay, you can see the ramp to the Lambda class shuttle is down. T7 and Cade, as you look at the ramp, you can see this red-haired female figure standing at the bottom of the ramp. However, Inigo, as you move in, you can see Jick Hershaw, your role model, the pilot who taught you everything you knew about how to fly stick, sort of stood at the bottom of the ramp, and in his characteristic sort of slightly cocky voice, he's like, "Come on, Inigo, we've got to get out of here."
Inigo, he smiles, perks up like the young kid he is. Yes, we got to get out of here. Come on, Cade. I slap him on the side, pop the T7. We've got a great pilot. I'll be co-pilot, and he kind of makes his way over.
Okay, so Cade and T7, you see it's this woman with red hair and these dark clothing and this hood sort of stood there. However, Inigo's like face lights up as though he's seen like someone who he's known from way back, and he's like, "Oh, come on, guys, we've got to go. We've got a great pilot here," and he's sort of running across the hangar bay towards this woman who's just sort of got the faint hint of a smile playing across her cold features.
I'm gonna let Inigo. Yeah, I'm gonna let Inigo kind of run ahead. I'm gonna basically drop to the ground, throw the bipod out on my heavy blaster, take an aim, and pinpoint right for between this woman's eyes.
Okay, not a problem. So at this point, I'm going to ask you all, apart from Inigo, who's obviously preoccupied, I'm going to ask T7 and Cade to make me cool rolls, and I will do likewise for your adversary. I'm not sure if mine actually rolled there. There we go. Okay. I'm just checking this to make sure I get it right. Okay, Inigo, you run across the hangar towards Jick Hershaw. You see he's like holding his hand out towards you as he used to do when he sort of like slung you up into the cockpit behind him to like act as his co-pilot. Then suddenly, as you take a mighty 10 wounds, whatever your soak minus whatever your soak is, the outline of Jick Hershaw seems to flicker and disappear. You look down to see a vibro sword sticking out of your chest, and the cruel features of this woman as she sort of stabbed this sword into your chest. And as you feel blood at the back of your throat, you just hear a mocking voice say, "Weak-minded fool."
Inigo will, as he's getting stabbed, will say, "Man, you got ugly." Until he sees what she is.
Okay, and how many wounds are you on?
With the 10, I've got 4 soaks, so I have 6 wounds remaining.
Okay, not a problem. This sword is still sort of sticking out of your side, but it appears to have missed your major organs. You sort of cough and a bit of blood comes out as you're like, "Man, you got ugly." Okay, then we're going to move on to Cade. You've slung your bipod down, you've got your gun out. You've just seen this woman like shove this vibro blade that she drew startlingly quick. It was almost one fluid motion as she drew it and rammed it through your friend's gullet.
So basically I just aim it down like, "Oh, you bitch." And I just kind of aim up and fire. What's the? And I mean, I hate to be. I don't like being the whole, what's the exact distance and everything, or what would be the difficulty? I guess is probably the more appropriate thing to ask.
She is at short range. It's only a small hangar bay.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna pop her in the noggin.
Okay, so normally that will be difficulty 1. However, since she has the adversary talent, the difficulty of all combat checks against her is upgraded by 3. So that would be 2 purple and 1 red for your difficulty.
Okay. Can I use a talent?
What's your talent do?
Oh, sorry. Sniper shot. So it makes the I guess like lowers the difficulty by 1.
Okay, so it would just be 1 red and 1 purple.
Cool. I'll take that. I will so take that critical shot.
Okay,
yeah, that is a crit.
Not a problem. So you're triggering the critical. Can I ask you to roll me a D100?
Yes, sir. Ooh.
What is the base damage of your weapon?
10.
Okay.
I've always, I will say one thing. Sorry, out of character or out of game. That's the one critical, or that's the one thing I've never been able to do is try and memorize that critical.
I've not memorized it either. I've got a handy reference sheet and another window opens to the side.
I was going to say, good luck at memorizing that table.
So with 85, you have winded. You've winded her. Your shot catches her in the shoulder, driving her back. There's a as she holds onto the sword going back, and it's pulled out of Inigo. She staggers back, and basically, in game terms, that means she can't voluntarily suffer strain to activate abilities or gain additional maneuvers until the end of the encounter. Okay, then we come on to T7.
And I will make my double movement, which is a single movement, to the shuttle quickly as possible.
Damn it! Sorry.
And yeah, that'll be my double movement to get as close as and up into the shuttle as possible.
Okay, so with her winded, you sort of screech around her with Berek still sort of clutched you. Luckily, because he weighs virtually nothing, it doesn't really affect your movement. He's literally like clamped on with his arms and legs as you whiz past this strange and evil woman. You're at the bottom of the ramp now. Literally, next round, you can be on the shuttle. Okay, however, Inigo, although you were distracted earlier, you now get a chance to take an action. The swords come out of you. The woman's like staggered back slightly as you've been hit by this blast of fire from Cade.
Inigo will quick draw his dueling pistol from his side, bring it up, smile a little bit with the blood kind of trickling down his mouth, and he'll fire.
Okay, not a problem. It's difficulty of, let's see, so it's upgraded by 3, so it's 1 red and 2 purple.
Okay.
Okay, what's the base damage of your weapon?
The dueling pistol is 9.
Okay. Okay, you hit her square in the chest and knocking her off her feet. She's quickly sort of scrambling back to her feet, but she's been like knocked out of the way of the entry ramp to the shuttle. You can see she's effectively, for her next action, because she was already winded, she's just going to be picking herself up. So she's doing that for her action. We come back round to Cade. You can see she's still got a hand on the vibro sword that she rammed into Inigo. It's humming menacingly and crackling. Cade.
Okay, so one thing I realized, and to anyone playing, always make sure you know your weapon's abilities, because I forgot that it had auto fire. I should have spent the that one advantage to trigger it. So, anywho, I'm just going to come in and I'll just draw the target, like draw B, fire again.
Okay, so if you're taking half an action to aim, you obviously gain a boost dice. The difficulty is still 1 purple, 1 red for you.
And yes, I will take that boost die.
You see her trying to throw. You see her trying to throw herself out of the way, but being winded, she can do little more than stagger and can't get out of the way. What's your damage again?
It's 10. So, 10, 12, 13. So she'll take 13 damage.
Okay, not a problem. Your shot smashes her in her hip, almost spinning around in the air and landing her on the floor. She quickly scrambles to her feet, but one of her arms is hanging down uselessly, unfortunately not the one that was holding the sword. And you can see that sweat sort of pouring down her face. She looks a lot more gaunt now, and there's a weird sort of glow, sort of yellowish glow behind her eyes, shadowed as they are by the hood. T7, you're at the bottom of the ramp. What are you going to do? You hear the thump as she hits the ground and starts clambering to her feet.
Yep. And I'm going to do the most evilest thing that any sentient person can do, but for me, whatever. I'm going to reach in with my arm internally, grab the detonator, and put it on her body, like inside her pocket or something, kind of like making her look like she did it. And then go up onto the ramp, double movement, so I will take a strain because it is an action that I'll be doing.
Okay, normally I'll have you make a roll to drop it in her pocket, but since she's winded and on the floor and taking so much damage, you easily slip it in her pocket and just like whiz up the ramp, carrying Berek onto the ship.
Yep, and that'll be the double movement up on top, and inside, I'll kind of like will be chuckling, and Berek will hear me chuckle, but it's gonna be like, and then.
Okay, as you head inside, you can see at the far end of the shuttle what appears to be like an open, hollow messenger sort of comlink. You can see the face of a very stern-looking young man wearing a hood. There's a sort of weird, like greenish glow, like uplighting his face, and he says, "Are you there, my student? What is going on?"
And I personally ignore it because I'm not his student.
Yeah, absolutely fine. So meanwhile, we're going to jump to Inigo outside. Inigo, what are you doing? You see she's like pulling herself to her feet, although she's looking quite ragged.
Inigo will pop out the one bullet. It's limited ammo for my dueling pistol. He says, "I'm heading to the cockpit, boys. Hobbs started shortly." And then he'll take the movement to make his way towards the cockpit. If he needs to, he'll take his action as a second movement to make it into the cockpit.
Yeah, if you want to get in the cockpit, you will have to take your whole movement, but that's no problem. As she's picking herself up, you bolt straight past her. You see her sort of raise her hand towards you, and for a few moments you feel like a sort of tug, as though some sort of mystical force is being used to like pull you back. But in a weakened state, you shrug it off and just run up the ramp onto the ship, sort of jumping into the cockpit. That leaves just Cade and her out. However, she's now managed to get herself to her feet. You can see Cade that she's dropped the sword. She very quickly, and I mean sort of like Inigo quickly, has like pulled out what appears to be a large pistol. You recognize it as a disruptor pistol, a particularly vicious weapon, one that's made to do like max damage. And she's sort of shakily pointing it at you, and she fires off a quick shot, although she will have a setback dice because of her weakened state. Okay, she hits. Okay, so the base damage of a disruptor pistol, if I can just find it on here, is damage 10, so it will be 13 damage. And literally a huge chunk is blown out of your side. Like I say, disruptor pistols are designed to do maximum tissue damage. However, you know that it was lucky her hand's so unsteady. If that had hit anywhere near one of your vital organs, it could have like blown your heart out of your chest. Then we come to you, Cade. All that stands between you and the welcoming arms of the Lambda-class shuttle is this one shaky woman who looks as though she's holding herself together through pure force of will, as her body's slowly failing.
I noticed that she's pretty much on her last legs, and I kind of sigh a bit. I just quickly like snap up the heavy blaster rifle and just fire right at her.
Okay,
It's like,
make your shot. It's the same difficulty, 1 purple, 1 red.
okay. Wow. Okay. So if I fail to hit, but I still get advantage.
Yeah. What I'm going to suggest is, sorry, if you've got an idea for advantage, what I was going to suggest, if you wanted to, although you've not hit it, you could use the advantages to like, oh, I've missed with a shot, but I can still run up the ramp onto the ship. If you've got an alternative suggestion, though, feel free to suggest it. It's your advantage.
Okay. I fire, and at the last minute, she kind of moves her body, but I actually shoot the disruptor pistol, like blowing it apart. Doesn't injure her, but it just knocks out of her hand and just kind of skitters along.
Okay.
And Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No? Oh, and I say, and then the rest I'll kind of use to kind of like get closer because I still have a movement, but no, obviously I probably won't be able to.
Okay, you're literally at the bottom of the ramp. You see the disruptor pistols hit and flies out of her hand. She snarls something. You can see like a bit of blood trickling out of the corner of her mouth, as I say, her body's slowly failing her. You see her sort of lift up her hand and she holds it out towards you.
Okay, I also lift up a hand to her.
Okay, as she holds her hand out towards you, again you feel this tremendous sort of invisible force around you, as though it's trying to like hold you in place. It's as though the gravity around you has become like really heavy and it's difficult for you to move. Sort of looking back, T7, you see Cade sort of snap off a shot. There's a ding ding as something rolls away on the floor of the chamber, and he sort of starts running up the ramp, and then it's almost as though like he hits like an invisible brick wall, and he's like he's struggling against something to try and move.
Yep, and I'm shaking left and right, and just I will react. I guess that would be my turn, huh? And kind of realizing I have to get, so my move maneuver will move towards the cockpit of the ship, and then engage with the console and plug in. And then my action will be to do the startup sequence from my end.
Okay, Inigo and T7 are in the cockpit. You start going through the various startup sequences. As you're doing that, Inigo, as you sit down, and you again see this hologrammatic face, this pallid, young-looking face, very stern, with a sort of weird green light uplighting it from below, a dark hood hanging over his face, and in a sort of calm but very menacing voice says, "Who are you, and where is my student?"
I am Stasi. Your student is outside training, and I'll try to turn off the button or try to disconnect the communicate as I'm flipping switches and stuff.
As you press the button, he goes, "Know this day that you have made an enemy of the Imperial Inquit," and then it cuts off.
And I'll turn to T7. I hope he's not mad as I'm trying to get this thing fired up.
Yeah, you guys are like doing the starting sequence while this is going on. Okay, Cade, you're being sort of held by, you can see like sweat running down her face and her hands shaking as though it's like a tremendous effort to hold you in place. You can almost feel that like if you just like force it a bit, you're slowly moving. You don't have, it looks as though she's like slowly falling to her knees trying to maintain whatever she's doing to you.
Okay, so I'll just try and like put all my weight into kind of like pushing my body to try and see if I can break her hold on me.
Okay, that will be an athletics roll, or you can use brawn if you wish, just like basic brawn. The difficulty is only 2, and you will have a boost dice due to her weakened state.
Okay. Oops. There we go. Proper leg. I'll take that.
Okay, you force energy into your muscles, and you break through this force, this whatever it was she was exerting on you, and your feet pound up the entrance ramp into the Lambda shuttle. As you do, you sort of glance back over your shoulder, and you see her sort of like go and fall down to the deck plate, sort of lowering her hand as the effort obviously becomes too much for her. You're all on the Lambda class shuttle. The ramp hisses up behind you. T7 and Inigo, you've got the startup sequence done. The engines are firing. You're good to go. What are you doing, guys?
Inigo will call out to Cade, hey, get your rear up here. We need someone on the guns to knock out some of these TIE fighters. Let's head out, and then I'll fire it up. T7, if you'd be so kind as to take off the shields so we can leave this docking bay. I would appreciate it.
Beep, 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 beep. Yes, sir. We'll be done.
Okay, not a problem. T7, make me a computers roll, difficulty 3.
Okay.
Look at that. Okay, you basically hack into the system and send like some false codes through to allow you to move through a security field unharmed. You fire up the engines and the Lambda shuttle moves out. Cade, looking out at the sort of view screen as you head out, you just see this woman sort of like almost defeated and almost broken on her knees as the doors open. A number of stormtrooper squads rush in. Sort of like they snap off a few shots at your shuttle, but they ping off the hull. They don't really cause any tremendous damage as the thrusters fire and the Lambda moves out into the black void of space, the wings lowering on it as it does so. As you move out into the open, you hear this, or you would hear it if it isn't space, but hey, it's Star Wars. So you see like 3 TIE fighters, the ones that were out on patrol, closing in on your position, obviously having picked you up on their scanners and knowing that you're not an authorized departure. However, as that's taking place, all 3 of you hear like a bing, bing, bing on the sort of subdermal implants that you've got placed in you. T7 being more technically minded, you know that your implants are transmitting a signal on sort of like a close band carrier wave.
All right, and what would that actually mean in layman's terms?
So looking at the signal, you can see that it appears that your implants were programmed once you were on board once you'd escaped from this vessel to broadcast your location and your coordinates to a sort of location just like inside the asteroid field. And as these TIE fighters start closing in on you, you see what appear to be 2 squadrons of X-Wings emerge from the asteroid field, their thrusters firing, moving at full speed, heading towards you. And on the comm system of your ship, you hear a quite young and excited sounding voice that goes, "This is Obsidian 1 to Lambda class shuttle. We're sending coordinates to the rendezvous point over to you now. Make the jump to hyperspace as soon as you can. Obsidian of Vermilion Squad will hold off these fighters. Good job, boys."
Beep, 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 beep.
You're the man, Inigo. Let's get the hell out of here.
Okay, which of you is going to make the jump to hyperspace?
I will, well, unless you want, if the pilot can do it himself, otherwise if it needs an astrogator, then I would.
It would be an
Inigo turns sheepishly to you guys. I can fly in a machine, and he's about ready to demonstrate it if we need to flee the TIE fighters. But pushing buttons for directions, he kind of shrugs his shoulders. Not so good at. Didn't pay attention much.
Okay, so T7, can you please make me an astrogation roll, difficulty 2?
All right. All right. Still connected.
You watch the coordinates are sent through to you from the X-Wings.
Alrighty. And here we go.
It's a success. It's good enough. You punch it. There's a brief moment as the stars begin to expand and stretch around you. And just as you head into hyperspace, you receive a fading transmission from the prison vessel, and you hear the cold, calculating voice you all recognize as Tiber Zan. And the voice says, "We have taken this vessel. You have my gratitude." And then you head into hyperspace, and everything is left far behind you. We now fade out on this scene with tinkly Star Wars music playing, and we cut to probably a week later, you're all in the debriefing room where you've met up with the rebel fleet. Commander Sheb Gurgren of the Mon Calamari is stood there, his arms folded behind his back. He has a slight punch. He's standing in front of the view screen, and he says, you see Berek, who's been given a replacement cybernetic eye, and he's been fed up. He now looks a little bit more sort of human. He's had a shave, etc. And he stood next to the Quarren Secus Proco, at which point Commander Sheb Gurgren says, the whole rebellion is grateful to you, boys, and of course yourself, T7. You have done an outstanding job and recovered our most important cargo. He turns to the Quarren and then says, well, Proco, you have your friend returned to us. It's time to live up to your part of the bargain. The Quarren moves forward, his tentacles rippling, and he moves over to each of you and like shakes your hands or affectionately sort of pats you on the top of your dome, T7. And then he sort of wistfully says, he's like, I used to own an astromech once. He was pretty handy. I'm glad to see that there's more like you out there. And he sort of very affectionately pats you on top of your dome, T7. He moves around and shakes Cade and Inigo by the hand and says, you have my deepest thanks. There is no way that I myself could have rescued Berek. And Berek repeats these thanks profusely. At which point Proco, the Quarren, turns around to Gurgren and says, very well, I'll give you the location of the stealth drive, although I should warn you, when I used it to escape from the Empire, I did notice some strange effects. And that's where we're going to end this first session of Rebel Strike. Thank you very much to my 3 wonderful players. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed running it. So I'm going to ask you each in turn just to give an outro, say you were and who you were playing. If you have any YouTube channels you want to plug, by all means feel free. So starting with Inigo, our hotshot pilot.
I'm Clay. I do have a channel, Wolfden 808, that I haven't done anything with. This is probably the 4th game I played of this. John, great running. I'm just lucky to be alive. It's great fun. Look forward to the next session, and hopefully he'll get a little smarter.
Excellent, and we shall look forward to that. So now we come to that most pluckiest of astromech droids, T701.
Beep, 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 beep. This is Gabe B playing T701. It has been a full pleasure, and wow, what a game. I've probably, like I said earlier to the guys in here, it's probably one of the most stressful characters I've ever played, not because of not knowing what to do, but because of having to fast think a lot of things. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, John, for the great game, and of course to my fellow players, Mike and Clay.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, we come to that bipod wielding, sharpshooting Cade Sen.
Hey everybody, this is Mike. I run the channel Mike the Piper, and check me out on the YouTubes where I do the Star Wars things with the pew pews and the and all that awesome stuff with both John and Gabe. I had an amazing time. This was my first time playing, and it was so exciting, and I loved it. And I cannot wait for the next episode of this game. And I'm so happy that we didn't die, because I'm like I could see myself getting into Cade, and I kind of like the idea of playing him. So I'm stoked. I want to shoot more things and befriend more astromech droids, so we can have an army of astromech droids just go in and just conquer everything.
Indeed. And the next session will take place when the Rebellion has installed this stealth drive given to them by the Quarren Secus Proco, and they are putting it through its first test to see whether it can be useful in the Rebel Alliance's struggle against the evil forces of Imperial oppression. Thank you to everyone who voted in the tide change earlier. We hope that you'll join us all for the second session of Rebel Strike, which will be taking place at the same time next week. So again, thanks to my great players, for anyone who's watching either now or in the future, and for anyone who voted in the tide change. As I said during the interval, if you're interested in Star Wars mostly the FFG Star Wars, but any Star Wars role-playing, I highly recommend you check out the Tides of Change Facebook group. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. And until we see you next time, may the Force be with you all.